indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I declare this regular monthly meeting of the Exeter Town Council to order. Ask Madam Clerk to call the roll.
Cal Ellis.
Here.
Frank DiGregorio is ill. Mike Kahn.
Here.
Manny Andrews.
Here.
Dan Patterson.
Here.
Thank you. Item 3 is public comment. First person who has signed the comment sheet is Mr. Bill Scamp.
Should I address the council from back here?
That's fine, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you for letting me address the council. I feel honored to be here to address the council.
Is this what you want?
My point of being here is that I understand that Lauren Thurn is being considered for the position of economic development in the community, and I just wanted to be a witness for him for that position. I've worked with Lauren for a long period of time. We've kind of known each other since childhood, and he certainly has entrepreneurial spirit within himself. He started out working a dairy venue and worked with FFA and worked in 4-H and other things within the agricultural community. He served as president of the Ag Council. He's been involved in the Farm Bureau on the board of directors. And also he's presently in a rural-oriented business in your community. So I understand that in that understanding, he is a great representative of economic interest in a rural community and has a great understanding of business and how it really works. So with that, to no ado, I can say a lot more, but I know that you would rather not have me take your time from that perspective, so I'll keep it brief. And I just wanted to say that Lauren would be a superb candidate for the position of economic development in the community of Exeter. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann Smith, please.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to address you. I am just here to reiterate those same sentiments and in regards to Lauren's capabilities and just the blessing that he will be to the town of Exeter in that role. He is a really good man, a very fair man who always considers the concerns and the needs of others, and he has a true, as Bill said, entrepreneurial spirit, and has a lot of business savvy and just has a heart for agriculture and local communities. So in that regard, I would just like to lend my support to Lauren in that role. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Viveros,
I think I'm waiting until,
would you like to speak at another time?
yes, I would, please.
Okay. There are public hearings. That public participates in those public hearings. Is there another matter you were speaking to?
Item 1 on the agenda?
I beg your pardon?
Item Stony Lane?
Oh, well, it's
That
going to
comes-
be addressed, and if a member of the council wishes to have someone in the audience speak, they can do that, but I understand where you're coming from.
I live on Stony Lane.
Well, I was just gonna say, because I know where you live, so that's fine, thank you. Asa, please, David.
Hi. These comments are in response to your correspondence items number 2 and 3 on the agenda today. I'll keep my comments brief since the state drive is already the subject of lawsuits and claims against the town, so I expect my position is already clear. The town-owned forested land that Mr. Anicelli refers to is a public road. The end that leads to my property isn't paved, but it's still a public road per map 273, which the town accepted in October '96. It was accepted and created prior to my purchase of lot 3622 in May of '97, the Anicelli purchase in May of '99, and the Cleary purchase in November of '99. It's the same map that is referenced in their deeds, so this shouldn't be a surprise, and they should be well aware of its existence. The laws that govern this aren't new, and in many cases date back to the days of horses and stagecoaches. My access is invalid, and so are theirs, along with everybody else in the Exeter Village development. This may be different in other towns and cities, but the town of Exeter doesn't maintain the space between a road's paved edge and private property lines. Just as Mr. Rinicelli and Mrs. Cleary are free to cut trees or mow the grass or fertilize or otherwise maintain the land between their property line and the road edge as they see fit, without notification to or permission from the town, I am also free to do the same. Contrary to the impressions of the letter writers, the work that I am currently doing on the property is related to the 2 building permits I pulled earlier this year. Both of these are permitted by right uses in the RU4 zone covered by lines 1, 2, 3, and or 8. If either author has an issue with this, I suggest they take it up with Hal Morgan, the zoning inspector, since he would be the proper authority to issue citations for zoning violations. I don't think they'll get very far, however, since Mr. Morgan is the one who signed my zoning certificates, which were necessary to pull the building permits.
There are no other individuals that signed, so we'll move on to item 4 of the agenda. There are several acknowledgements that I'd like to make. First, our animal control officers deserve some recognition. That's Dina Dolan, Shauna Dolan, and Lori O'Brien, and Director of Public Works, Stephen Matchak, as they have all attained the status as nationally certified animal control officers, and this is a requirement by state mandate. So I appreciate that they have been trained. You should know they have been. You should know it's a requirement, and they have successfully achieved that status. So hats off to them. Thank you, Steve, for making sure that happened. Speaking of dogs, dog licensing is due annually between April 1st and June 1st. And the fee is $6. If you wait till after June 1st, it's a $6 per license plus a $25 late fee per license. These can be obtained here at the town hall or at the animal shelter on South County Trail. Then I'd like to be sure you know that tomorrow night we'll hold a public hearing on next year's fiscal budget. The council has worked on this, prepared this budget over the last couple of months. We present it to the public tomorrow night at 7 o'clock here in the council chambers. That's followed up by the financial town meeting on June 11th. That's Tuesday, June 11th at 7 o'clock at the at high school, the auditorium in the high school. It's important because that's when we all decide how much money we're going to pay in the next fiscal year to support schools and our local municipal government. Tomorrow night's budget hearing, by the way, is also at 7 o'clock. Both events, if you will, are at 7 o'clock. Here tomorrow night, and the junior senior high auditorium on June 11th. Thank you. Is there anyone on the council that wanted to add or acknowledge? Thank you. Hearing none, we move to item 5, the approval of the agenda order. I'll move that we approve as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. We'll move to the consent agenda. No vouchers this month. I personally would like to just remove the tax assessor's report and an emergency management public safety report. It's actually in the form of a letter from our EMA director. Are there other reports that anyone wishes to remove? Hearing none, with regard to communications, as you all know, there are several that we're going to address shortly. Applications, letters of interest for the task force, for the constable's position, special constable, the juvenile hearing board. There are several of those. In addition to those, I would like to remove 21, 24, 28, and 32. Others, council, that you wish to address. Dan?
1, 23, 27, and 36.
23,
23,
27,
27, and 36,
36.
and number 1. A lot of them we will be addressing right away.
okay.
I have none, Mr. President.
Yeah, that was, one was one of those task force letters, for sure. No others, council?
No, sir.
Hearing no others, just moving forward, note there are 2 remittances that we'll be approving here. There are no abatements. As far as the minutes that are before us, the minutes for the council meeting of April 1st and that executive session accompanied that meeting of the same night, those will need to be continued to next month, so those need to be removed from this agenda. The other work session, special meeting minutes that you see there, we have received, so those should all be approved tonight. And that being said, I will move that the consent agenda be approved as amended.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So voted. Moving to number 7, we continue to have vacancies in Personnel Board and Conservation Commission. I keep hearing people talk about it, but we haven't seen letters. Perhaps we will. Madam Clerk, it says we have no resignations. Well, and we move to appointments, item C. First item is appointment of a special constable. You've all received communication from Town Sergeant Bill Donovan. He writes to us, if you don't mind, I'm going to read this letter from Bill for the record. He writes on May 1st, "Dear council members, 3 of the 4 persons who submitted letters of interest in the position were interviewed. The 4th person failed to appear for the interview and was not given any further consideration. After review and careful consideration of the interview results, it is my recommendation that town council appoint William J. Gallagher to the position of special constable." It's in essence his letter. You've seen Mr. Gallagher's his resume, by the way, which was a communication here. Any discussion, a motion to be made?
I'd make a motion, Mr. President, if it's in order, that we approve Mr. Gallagher as a special constable based upon the letter from the town sergeant.
Motion is made and seconded that William Gallagher be appointed to the position of special constable. Discussion, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Thank you, Bill Donovan, for conducting. I spoke to Bill, I know we set up interviews last week. As he says in his letter, 1 person did not come in for that interview. With regard to the Juvenile Hearing Board, you recall we did have a letter of interest, and we have received a communication from Frank Herrera, the chair of the Juvenile Hearing Board. He writes, "Dear Lynn, the Exeter Juvenile Hearing Board interviewed Mr. Casey Artis on April 15th. The board unanimously approved Mr. Artis's request to become a Juvenile Hearing Board member. Mr. Artis appears capable of serving within the methodology proven to be effective in redirecting the lives of arrested juvenile offenders." And that's sincerely Frank Herrera, Chair. Having heard that letter, seen it, is there a motion to be made?
Mr. President, I'd make a motion that we appoint Casey Artis as a juvenile hearing board member based upon the recommendation of Mr. Herrera.
Is there a second? Motion is made and seconded. Discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. We come to item 3. We've heard one of those candidates addressed tonight in a public comment, and we had one other, if you'll recall. Seems that at this point we have 2. I would recommend that we hold these. The posting is through the end of May, so as this month continues, we'll see that we have some, we hope, I know we need to have, I would say, at least 5 to establish a viable commission or task force. I know I spoke to someone who was working on it and submitting it, so perhaps there'll be 2, 3, 4, or more. I don't think we intend to be restrictive, at least I don't, and I don't think the rest of the council does either. So, the posting continues through the end of May. And the requirement is that you care about town and you're interested in studying the tax base to see if there might be something that we can do to encourage a broader base. Moving to expiring terms, Madam Clerk. Expiring terms is blank.
Yes, it is.
No expiring terms. That's good news.
Yeah.
We move to public hearings. First matter of business. I'll put that away, Steve. First matter of business is an application for public entertainment license. It's submitted by Mr. Ray Vernon, for the Rhode Island Motor Vehicles Collectors Club, 790 Rod Road, North Kingstown. It's for a military vehicle show, Saturday, September 14th, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., Sunday, following day, the 15th, from 9 to 3, at Camp Canonicus Conference Center on Exeter Road, here in town. We have the application. I would ask for a motion to open the public hearing.
I make that motion, Mr. President, that we open it.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion is made and seconded that we open this public hearing. I've read the announcement. Here's the application. Is Mr. Vernon here?
Ray is not available. I'm here to represent him. My name's Eric DeRochambeau.
Well, Eric
DeRochambeau.
DeRochambeau. D-E, as in
Yes.
R-O-C-H-A-M-B-E-A-U?
Yes.
Something like that?
Yeah.
Something like the gentleman that helped us earlier in our history. Anyway, Rochambeau. Did you get that, Madam Clerk? You've done this before, have you?
Yes, I
not?
have, sir.
No one has signed up to speak, but you certainly could just give us a heads up about what all that.
It's a static display of historical vehicles. Last year, I think we had 120 people come through over the 2 days, and we do demonstrations, or we explain what the vehicles were built for.
Sounds like a plan.
It's a history lesson, except it has a gasoline engine.
They all did back then, didn't they, at least in the wars? Thank you for that. Council, questions?
No, but I'm looking forward to attending.
Thank you.
Can I sit in a tank?
We had one last year. I can't promise one this year.
All right.
Just for the record, may I ask, I'm sorry.
It's gonna come out.
Just for the record, I asked Madam Clerk if abutting property owners were properly noticed. I see that we've been provided a list, I assume they have. And also note that there are no persons here present to speak. Does the gentleman or the organization owe some funds to you, some reimbursement?
$184.75 in certified mailings and advertising fees. $184.75.
Tomorrow?
Yeah, and that's fine. Whenever someone can make their way in, then the license would be issued. So,
That's fine.
and I think you're looking for September 14th?
Yes, sir.
We really appreciate your timely approach. I say that because sometimes people realize somewhat at the last minute that they needed to come to us, so
No.
thank you for
Ahead of
doing.
time.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I'd make a motion that we approve the license as long as the application is in order.
Let me close it here.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
do that first. Make a motion to close.
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
And motion is made and seconded, and those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Yes, there are no no's. We're closed. Say no. The hearing has been closed, and there's a motion to be made
Yes, I'll make that motion now.
that the application be approved as submitted,
Correct.
subject to the reimbursement of the fees owed.
No problem.
Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. good luck with that project.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Perhaps several of us should come and see that, you know.
We'll take your money anytime.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Second item of business on our public hearings docket, item B, is our proposed amendments to the Exeter Code of Ordinances, Chapter 38, Streets, Sidewalks, and Other Public Places, Article 2, Streets, Division 3, Official Street Map, Subdivision 4, Use of Fees, etc., Section 36-106, Buildings Not Unmapped Streets. I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing. Make a motion.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded that we open this public hearing. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Steve, I'm gonna ask, since you presented us with these suggested amendments, that before I ask you to explain, let me just read what I think captivates the spirit of what we're doing here tonight. And then you tell me, now that I can read it. No building permit for the erection of any building shall be issued unless the building lot abuts a street which has been placed on the official map giving access to the proposed structure, or before a permit shall be issued, such street shall have been certified to be suitably improved, or such suitable improvement shall have been assured by means of a performance guarantee in accordance with rules and regulations adopted in the same manner as rules and regs for subdivisions provided in the General Laws 1956, Chapter 45-23. The following is a list of uncertified roads or sections of roads in the town and their approximate locations. And just be sure, and I understand, at least I understand from my talking to you, Steve, when you submitted this, we're talking our own local Exeter Code of Ordinances. And what I spoke to earlier here when I opened this hearing was what is provided by our local Code of Ordinances. I did want to read that now there's a list of streets that we're going to address here, or parts of streets, but the last part of this I think is important. It says where enforcement of this section would entail practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship, or where circumstances of the case do not require the structure to be related to a street, the zoning board of review may, in a specific case, after a public hearing, et cetera, with reasonable notice, may make reasonable exceptions and issue a permit subject to conditions that will ensure adequate access for firefighting equipment, ambulances, and other emergency vehicles necessary for the protection of health and safety, will protect any future street layout shown on the official map. Having said that, Steve, did you want to speak to some changes that you want to make here before we begin, or should we go through street by street?
We can do it any way you want. There's one deletion and completion, and the industrial drive section, when you read the deed and look at the official map. All right, all of these were found basically due to the map corrections we've been making for the last year and a half or 2 years. And we're just trying to update all the lists, make sure everything's accurate. So we found this was all found due to map corrections that we were making. We found roads that aren't in the right locations on the map, that go to the wrong. With all of this still being worked on, there's still a few changes coming. But all these were found due to that. And then I would look at the plat maps, you look at the deeds. We found that Industrial Drive, town doesn't own that section of road. It's owned by someone else, so that we do not have to address Industrial Drive, it can be deleted. So that'll go from 10 down to 9.
And that's item 4 on the list that we have, that we've been given for
Correct.
amendments.
And there are some slight changes due to remeasuring. The snowpack was on when I first started all this. So,
Street by street.
Street by street, okay. Evan Slocum Road. 274 feet from the intersection of New Road, 55 feet west to private property. That's the section of road that we're talking about. It's only a few feet, 55 feet, but it's undeveloped, there's no road there. It doesn't affect anything. It just, in the event of, in the future, they would have to fix the road properly.
Excuse me a minute, now the reason I said in number 4 is because Bell Schoolhouse was not in bold print, so that's actually number 1, and that's, thank you, Madam Clerk.
Yeah, Bell Schoolhouse is already,
It's already
no
established,
corrections to that
right.
section.
It's not, right, and
Right.
it wasn't a development that was laid out.
Right, it's just that was an existing town road. Some of these have been existing town roads for quite a while. The State Drive is 605 feet from the intersection of Sarah Drive, 280 feet south to private property, I should say.
Instead of,
Oh,
it should say 2.
two. These are the little corrections. Yeah.
Right.
I believe Lynn has a corrected version. Evergreen Drive, 467 feet from the intersection of Rose Drive, 180 feet south to private property. Which in that case
Question
would,
on that one, Steve, is that the one that is a river?
no,
No.
we'll get to that one.
Okay.
That's coming up. Now, that one is when you go down Oak Hill Drive, when it turns.
To the end, the
The end, take a
cul-de-sac
right.
on the right.
It would be the section to the right, correct.
Right, and we addressed this here at least
We've
2 or
had
3
issues in the different,
2 or 3 years ago.
due to tax sales of lots and stuff that comes up once in a while. Like I said, Industrial Drive deleted. Lantern Lane, 1,762 feet from the intersection of Hiawatha Road, 245 feet west to private property. That's, you know where the group home is in the corner? That's where our drainage
Paul
runs.
Massey's lot?
It dead ends right at Paul Massey's property, correct. And it actually has a cul-de-sac at the end on the plat map. But there is no existing road. The town does have drainage in that section, as well as on one of the others coming up. And we have Pin Oak Drive, from the intersection of Tarbox Drive, 310 feet south to the intersection of Pin Oak. That is the river bed. That's the drainage, basically now. That one's in Cedar Grove. And we have Robin Drive, 304 feet from intersection of Pheasant Drive, 156 feet south to private property.
Robin Drive's in Cedar Grove?
Now, Woodland Manor,
Correct.
Okay, across the street,
and that runs into the
Golf course.
golf course, correct. That's also a drainage. And it's Teft Hill Trail West, 516 feet west of Route 3 to 270 feet to state property. That runs to 95 property. You know, Exeter, autos, repair, and that is off of Route 3.
Yeah.
Full body.
That's
Just wanna
what
see-
I
well, you
remember.
just-
So I remember seeing that one. You
Right,
showed me
okay.
that one, yeah.
So that's the one that runs to 95. West Shore Drive,
That piece I'm familiar with.
353 feet from the intersection of Birch Drive, 100 feet north to private property. That runs straight downhill into the wetland, if you've never been to the end of that particular street, which is a dead-end road. Then we have Widow Sweets Road, 1,262 feet from the intersection of Falcon Ridge Drive, 263 feet west to private property. And that's the ninth one, so that's the last correction.
Now, when we go back to Clark and Johnson Road, because I know several people through the years have asked me.
There's a section.
Because, and I see that it's listed here, and we're calling it, it's there, but it's uncertified.
Right, the road's still there, it's still
But you're not
town
making-
property.
Right.
It's just, there's no road. If you want,
Right.
there's no physical road, there's something of paths, I count a few of these, not all of them. But that's it. You take Hod and Jocelyn, Bell Schoolhouse, Stony Lane, Teft Hill Trail. Some of them are developed, like Teft Hill Trail on one side of Route 3 is developed for twice as far as the other side, and then just dead ends and it's woods. Even though there used to be a road there at one point, before 95 was there, that went right straight across. West Shore Drive, there's never been a section of road, but yet the town still has, on the official map, shows town property, but there's no road. there's no access. Widow Sweets, that was a road, I remember 35 years ago being able to drive through there. You cannot now. And that's how these are, but they show them on the map, and we're making map corrections, and we find these, and it's no different than Stony Lane or Pod Johnson, as far as condition-wise. And a lot of these are less drivable than those.
But they're going to be on the map designated as uncertified?
Correct. Right now, they're here and there.
Is that a current,
Well,
I'm familiar with the map, that map, but are there currently some that have that category? Or are we
Unmaintained, or,
Are you introducing that, so to speak, uncertified, or are already some that
there's
are
a
listed that way?
uncertified.
There are some already.
I don't believe they actually say it on the map. That's why they're in the ordinance. The map just will show a different contour on the map. It'll show hex lines versus the straight lines.
But as Jim just pointed out, the ones that are not in bold, those aren't currently uncertified.
They're all currently uncertified if they're not in bold.
And it's
Oh,
specified,
right.
it's specified in the ordinance though.
In the ordinance, they've been in some of these,
Got it.
and we've been changing these over the years. We changed Old Yago School Road last year because a section was
Got it.
upgraded. We've done Old Allentown Road, a section was upgraded in the past. And as time goes on, we'll have others. And we just make we make the correction to the ordinance as these become certified.
So what you're doing is adding some pieces to
Correct.
that, adding some sections of
Yeah,
road.
we're protecting the taxpayers.
No, but I mean, these are additional uncertified things that are gonna be added,
Mhm.
right? I mean, like Evergreen, I mean, when that came to us before.
Right. We've had that in front of us before.
Looking for something there. Good.
Can I ask you?
Please do.
Steve, what you're seeking to do, I think is, am I incorrect on this? You're seeking to clarify the map basically by adding to the ordinance to indicate what might otherwise be an ambiguity.
Correct.
There's areas that are not and never have been certified as open. You're simply making that very specific in the ordinance where you found that such uncertified roads exist.
Correct. So when the town of West Greenwich abandoned the section of Widow Sweets, for instance, the town of Exeter just drew a line across the town line and said, that's it, on the map. But they never corrected it in the ordinance. They should have added it to the ordinance because that road was not maintained at that time.
But some of these have never been maintained, never been opened as public highways.
Some of them, that's correct. Some
And they've
have,
never been, there's
and
never
some have
been,
not.
but there's never been an official certification to any of them, is that correct? Certification that they were improved, suitably improved.
In 1960 maybe, before the ordinance, but there was no such ordinance at that time.
Right, since the ordinance.
Pre-ordinance, no. I mean, pre-ordinance, I can't answer to. Real estate's too far. But these current,
Other questions?
where there's no
Questions of
physical
Steve, Dan?
Yeah, I got a question, like, New London Turnpike, that was abandoned by the town.
no,
What happens to the property owners down there that wanna access their property?
that was not abandoned by the town.
Wasn't it abandoned?
No, it was not New London Turnpike. The last abandonment of a road in this town was Sheffield Hill and Hog House Hill in 1985.
So, it's one of the property owners on either side of New London Turnpike.
They still have still road frontage with the town of Exeter. No different than
But
it
if they
ever was.
wanted to improve their land or build
They have to
something,
upgrade the road.
they have to rebuild
Yes,
the
they do.
road?
Yes. Just like Bob Pacheco had to do it and the young man over on Old Yago School Road last year.
I remember
2 years
that, when
ago.
that was an extension.
That was, he only had to go just his frontage to get,
So say New London Turnpike, say someone wanted to go down there and build a house, are they gonna be required to do asphalt or a dirt road?
if it's a current gravel road, it would be gravel, up to gravel. If it's a current asphalt road, it would be asphalt.
Okay, my next question, like Evan Slocum Road, the individual that owned that, subdivided that, he died, God, 7 or 8 years ago.
Quite a while.
But probably his intention was one day to be able to get into that, the remaining parcel of land.
He left himself a 50-foot privately owned section of property down into his larger section in the back. So that's privately owned.
So he's got a private right of way up to that existing, there's not a cul-de-sac, there's just.
There's a partial cul-de-sac, this is the whole problem, they've never built the entire cul-de-sac, so we're going from edge of road. There's no road from there to the property line, so they would just have to, they were gonna have to build the road anyway, if they were gonna put a plat on his
But
private
that's
property.
private right away there. that
Right,
one.
he would still have to build the road either way, correct.
But he owns it, not the town.
Correct, in that case, that one he owns.
And then we have the case of Asa Davis with the State Drive where we are already issued a building permit.
But there's no frontage on that road, so that frontage is off of Route 102.
I'll let the courts decide that.
Well, I can't give you, you couldn't get a building permit with 50-foot frontage on any road. So you have zoning that you have to abide by. So, I don't know, that's not my comment.
Well,
There's
Asa-
just places where there is no road, the traffic cannot drive. There would be a liability to the town. This is to protect the taxpayers in the event someone wanted to go down a road like New London Turnpike and just say, the town has to fix that, 'cause I want to put a house in. That's why this ordinance was,
Because that was happening in different
it
places.
was happening back then. That's why this ordinance was written,
Was
to
created.
protect the taxpayers.
I kind of remember that. Asa actually has signed up to speak, but before I ask him, is there any questions from either of you,
No, thank you.
gentlemen? Dan, anything else?
One thought in my mind, you're affecting a lot of property owners with this list. Some parcels you aren't. I'm probably thinking maybe that they should have been notified by the town for the mailing, what was going on. Because most people don't even look at a paper anymore, you know? So that's my one thought, because it's gonna affect a lot of landowners. That's all I got, Cal.
Asa?
The implications of this ordinance change run far beyond road maintenance. There are a total of 31 abutting lots affected on these sections of roads that Steve's listed. Quick review shows 12 have houses on them already, so the road completion costs fall on whichever unlucky 10 of the remaining 19 lots need building permits first. The assessed land values total $6 million. This is a serious amount. Town zoning ordinances don't permit creation of lots without adequate frontage on finished roads. Town building ordinances require lots to be legal prior to the building permit issuance. If the road sections on Stevens' list had been considered unsuitably improved when they were created, these lots and the buildings already on them would be illegal. However, all of these roads have been accepted as approved by the town for 2 decades or more, and the planning board, zoning inspector, and building inspector have been issuing permits on them for a full time. The example I am most familiar with is a State Drive. The road was recorded on October 9th of '96, calls for a full road length of 2,650 feet. The actual paving ends at 2,370 feet. Maybe this 280-foot shortage doesn't sound like a big deal, but in this case, it leaves Iancelli's property 90 feet short of the frontage needed to be legal. This lot wouldn't have been created and the building permit would not have been issued if the road section had been declared unsuitably improved when this was built. Instead, the full road length was accepted by the town, the bond returned to the developer, the lots were created and sold, and the houses were built. This same pattern appears in 7 of the other roads listed. Besides the State, Edmund Slocum, Evergreen, Lantern Lane, Robin Drive, West Shore Drive, and Widow Suites. All these roads end in cul-de-sacs that were short paved but were accepted by the town to the full length, and the bonds required, when they were required, were returned to the developers. Based on Stevens Road calculations, this shortage at the time was probably on the order of about $500,000. Now I'd estimate it's more like $1 million to $1.5 million. I'm not terribly familiar with how things work for towns, but in the business world, a pattern like this, at these amounts, the outside auditors would be very interested, and the forensic accountants would already be going through the financial records. I don't know who is or was responsible for the town accepting as finished roads and returning the bonds for these suddenly unimproved roads, but I can tell you who it wasn't. It wasn't any of the buyers or owners of the abutting properties. They purchased properties showing these lots with legal frontage on finished public roads. These roads were all accepted by the town as improved roads in their entirety for whatever reason. Once that happens, the town is under an obligation to maintain them that way. These properties have an assessed value of almost $6 million. Passing this ordinance means these lots are devalued. Their tax valuations go down, which means the taxes go up for everybody else in town. If this passes, you're giving everybody who had a lot subdivision or building permit denied over the last 2 decades ground to claim against the town, because on one hand, the planning board, public works department, and the town council were enabling the creation of substandard lots on roads that weren't certified and improved, while on the other hand, they were denying requests from applicants for the same reason. I started going through the records from Estate Drive's creation in '96 to figure out how many there were. I gave up after counting more than 100, and that was only within 8 years after the creation of Estate Drive. This ultimately looks like a road abandonment program, much like what the town is trying to do with Stony Lane now for Scott Millar. For a road abandonment, the governing statute is 24-6-1. This statute has a provision that abutting owners are entitled compensation from the town for the loss of access to a public road. If this is held to be an abandonment, with 31 properties assessed at $6 million, you're exposing the town to substantial claims. In the past, the town started on the right solution. It started buying and gaining ownership of the affected properties, like Pinoak, where the problems were worst, and it's been paving the road sections as resources were available. Just 7 months ago, in October of 2018, the town paved the last 190 feet of Mockingbird at the town's expense, not the property owners, even though one had pulled a building permit at the end of 2017. This prevented one more road and another 4 lots with $750K of assessed value from being on the list. I haven't talked to all the abutters, but I've talked to some, and so far most share an opinion like mine. They don't really care whether the road is paved or not. They do care a lot about being required to pave it before being able to get a building permit. The town already has 6 or 7 lawsuits outstanding. Approving this ordinance will generate at least one more, and I expect possibly more than that.
Any questions from the council?
No, thank you.
Any other questions, comments, council?
No.
Hearing none, I would entertain a motion that the public hearing be closed.
I make that motion, Mr. President.
I'll second.
Motion is made and seconded that we close the public hearing. Those in favor say aye. Opposed? So voted. A motion with regard to the request for amendments as presented by DPWC.
Mr. President, I make that motion based upon the comments made by the DPW director.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion is made and seconded that these amendments be approved to the ordinance. And is there discussion of that?
Like I said earlier about notifying these property owners, because a lot don't know, and then the 31, was the 31 abutting houses, is that the total on all these roads?
That was 31 lots, that doesn't count the deletion of the industrial lot that Steve mentioned.
So some have houses, some don't?
Yes, of those, 19 do not have houses, 12 do.
I think before approving something like this, we better do a little bit more research. And, because you're affecting a lot of landowners, that's my feeling. Some of these roads is not a problem, but some there is, you know.
I think this is Rollins.
I'm sorry?
You think it was voting because of the questions that are raised here?
What
I-
what is before the council is
That's an
a
opinion.
question of whether or not you are going to simply list something on the map as being an uncertified road. The public works directors indicated that they are not currently certified, none of them are certified, at least since the ordinance has been put into effect. And the hearing was held. I know there's been some question as to abandonment. Abandonment then definitely would require notice to abutting landowners. This is not an abandonment. This is simply a statement as to whether or not roads are certified as being appropriate for public use. There are sections within the ordinance that allow exceptions to the need for a full improvement of the road. That's not before anybody right now, as far as I can see, according to the ordinance itself. So, I mean, if you ask me legally whether or not there's a requirement that this be continued, I don't think that would not be my position on it. Council certainly has the opportunity to continue it at any time we want, for whatever reasons you believe are correct. But from a legal point of view, I don't think it's necessary for me to engage in any particular further research on it.
Appreciate that, thank you. Council, any other discussion?
There's still a process in place for development down the road after public hearing. So it's not like it just closes it off.
I think that was your point. was
Yes,
it not?
exactly.
Yeah, that's the point being made. Yeah. Well, hearing no other comment, I'll call for a vote. The motion's been made and seconded that these amendments be approved. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I will vote aye. Dan, you will vote
Nay.
no. So, Madam Clerk, you've recorded the votes accordingly.
3 yes and no.
3 yes, 1 no. Thank you. Moving to new business. Speaking of roads that need attention, 9A relates to Stony Lane. And there's been some work done here. Manny, thank you for taking the initiative to meet, and
Sure.
Manny, Ken. Manny, why don't I turn it over to you for the moment, if you will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. President, I received a call from Chief Gavitt a few weeks ago concerning Stony Lane. Being relatively new in Exeter, I said, what's wrong with Stony Lane? And I quickly found out what's wrong with Stony Lane. This has nothing to do with Scott Millar or any of the other abutters. This has to do with a public safety issue in preventing people from getting seriously hurt. And the call that Chief Gavitt made to me said there are a lot of kids coming in, a lot of them from out of state partying. Apparently this has been going on a while. With the advent of social media nowadays, you put something on social media and there's a lot of kids who are showing up to party. And I haven't witnessed it, but there are a few people here who have witnessed it. There's somewhere 50, 60, 70 kids showing up and having a grand old party in the woods off Stony Lane. And it's not an easy place to access. And I didn't access it. I went with the DPW director and I met Chief Gavin, I met Mr. Millar down there, and I wanted to see it myself before I made any recommendation on what should happen, if anything. And as we traveled across the road, I realized that this was a serious situation if kids are gathering here. And they're gathering on Friday nights to party, apparently all throughout the year. And there's a number of kids that are coming in. It's basically 1 lane in and 1 lane out. Chief Gavitt's call to me was based upon a 911 call that he had received. I believe it was said, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, about a possible overdose. The rescue tried to get in there, the fire truck tried to get in there. They can get in, but it's going to be really, really tough to get out if there's a true emergency. And as you traverse it, there's an area that's completely flooded that I don't even think a four-wheel could get through. I'm sure a fire truck couldn't get through, they'd be stuck in the mud. So this is a public safety issue. Yes, there are other issues concerning rowdiness, trash. They light fires there because it's a great area for a big bonfire, but of course, kids being kids, they don't put it out, they don't clean up the trash, that's left for everyone else. So in my opinion, as a former first responder, this is a problem waiting to happen. So we met, myself, the DPW director, Mr. Finley, Mr. Millar, the Nature's Conservancy, and we tried to talk about what options there were in order to remedy this problem. Really, there's only one option, and that's to abandon the road and to block it off. We did have some conversations with, I think it's a Mr. McQuaid who's in a butter, and Mr. Peck who's in a butter, but this is a serious problem that needs to be remedied. I believe the only option there is to abandon the road and to block it off. Mr. President, I'm not sure if now would be the appropriate time to invite a couple of comments. I did ask Chief Gavitt to come in. So Chief Gavitt, would you mind speaking about some of the public safety issues with Stony Lane?
Okay. Scott, before you start, can I just say, thank you, Manny.
Yes.
I just want to acknowledge Manny jumped on this, and I appreciate that. Manny is our liaison, the council liaison for public safety. And so thank you for,
Yes.
as liaison.
It's a problem that needs to be
And
taken care of right away.
I appreciate that. Scott, please.
Thank you for hearing me tonight. He pretty much covered everything. About a month ago, we had a call of a burn in the woods. When we arrived, there was probably 20-plus cars, 50-plus people. The next day, I called Mr. Mascheck, Public Works, what can we do? He said we had to abandon it to gate it. I'm not totally in favor of abandoning it, but we do need a gate. If that's what we gotta do, that's what we gotta do. This is a big issue as far as brush fires, partying. These people are from Connecticut, so this is how this is getting out, social media or whatever the case may be. And it ain't so much the calls that we go on, it's the calls we don't get. One of these times, we're gonna have a big brush fire up there, somebody's gonna die up there, we're not gonna know it, whatever the case may be. I do have here on record the last 3 or 4 years of probably 15 to 20 calls. We've also had distress calls of people going up through, passing through, because it's still listed as a passable road. So they get hung up, distress calls, you know, they have anxiety attacks, possible heart attacks, and it's a struggle getting these people out. That's all I have, thank you.
Chief, GPS directions will put you right in the middle of that spot, won't they?
Yes.
And I think Mr. Millar brought that up, and obviously this is a problem, because if someone is coming through Exeter or cutting through town, and they're on the GPS, they're gonna be right in the middle of this road, they're gonna be stuck in the mud, and as I understand it, I believe the DPW director said, not even a tow truck or wrecker can get in there to bring them out. Their tech, I think, had to pull somebody out with this tractor.
Yes.
And so this is not something we want, so as part of this abandonment, after the public hearing, if it's approved, we'll be notifying Google to make sure that that's updated on the GPS routes, because it is a liability problem for the town.
And if that happens, and when that does happen, please meet with me on that too, because we have 2 to 3 other roads in town that still send people off the beaten path, whether it's gated or down somebody's private property that's no longer a public road. That's also an issue in this town.
Thank you.
One other thing too, I strongly recommend a Knox box. I spoke to Stephen about this also, which would go on a gate, so that way the fire department can access if there is any problems up in these areas. Because it's still a heavy traveled area. Thank you.
Steve, would you mind explaining the plan that we came up with that we think, and maybe talking about the price it's gonna cost the town and so forth?
The section of road we're talking about, just in case anybody wants to know, it's currently an unmaintained road. That means it's not on our certified road list, it's not even on our map. It's shown, but it's hashed out, like I said, as an unmaintained town road. The the distance we're talking about is 3,471.99 feet, according to property map measurements, using the property lines. The Nature's Conservancy owns both sides of that distance for 2,685.42 feet. And Mr. Peck owns 786.57 feet that he would, if it was abandoned, would go to Mr. Peck, and then the 2,600 would go to Nature's Conservancy. The town would retain the unmaintained section of road to the end of Mr. McQuaid's property as an unmaintained section of road. We would also retain the uncertified section 975 feet from Sunderland Road to the tower. Okay, so that would stay the same as it is, an unmaintained road, gated.
The town retained to the cell tower.
To the cell tower, okay? And then from there, it would be
It gets
blocked.
pretty bad right after that.
That's exactly where it, within 10 feet,
I
goes
think
just like
there's
that.
still a log landing right now on spot.
It was on the left, you can't really tell anymore, but, yes, that's to the tower. That would be maintained as a unmaintained road, so the town still wouldn't do anything in there. There's already currently a gate out near Sunderland Road, which could be used. Just put a Knox box, and it'd be fine. On the other end, where you come down to where McQuaid property, it's not even McQuaid, it's just the guy's name lives there, but its owner, it's called 4400 Post Road, or Post something LLC. Who owns that lot? okay? The abandonment would be the end of that property line.
That's the old house that was that house?
It was torn down and now there's a new house been built there. So they already have, they've been in there for a long time. There's been a house there for, I don't even know how long.
Steve, can I ask you to be a little clearer about that? Where that line?
All right, right now, if you
Because you
read,
go down now, it's improved to a certain point.
right, if you read this, the uncertified road list, okay? Right after their driveway is where the unmaintained section stops. But on both sides, Scott Millar owns on the right side, and Mr. McQuaid owns on the left side. You go around the corner for another few hundred feet, and then that's where, on the right side, it turns to Nature's Conservancy after a couple hundred feet. And then another 100 feet or so on the left side, it turns to Nature's Conservancy. That's where the abandonment would end.
Okay.
As far as a location of gate, if Mr. McQuaid and Mr. Millar agreed, I would put it down closer to the driveway, where it currently is unmaintained. But I would need their permission for that. But the actual gate would be around the corner. And the reason for that is just so that people see there's a gate, turn around, leave.
Now, the Raccoon Club is after Scott's house.
Right, the raccoon hunters currently have an easement, access easement from Nature's Conservancy, from Stony Lane to their property up on the West Greenwich border. Nature's Conservancy, we discussed that, they're willing to grant them an easement all the way out to where the road would be unmaintained again, just like they have now. So that, they would take that cost on themselves. The only cost the town truly has is
The gate would be blocking their ways also.
that the coon hunters,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
Autobahn, yes. Mr.
They'd
Peck's
have
property, yes.
keys? They'd have
They would
keys?
all have keys.
Yeah.
Knox box for the fire department, which would access a set of keys to open the gate as well. The town wouldn't need a key, because if it was abandoned, because we don't have to maintain the road, it's already unmaintained. There's no cost for road maintenance by the town. Gate locations were the only thing it would come into question, and upon approval of the private property owners, we could do it in a more convenient location. Other than that, we'll do it at the end of the unmaintained sections. We still eliminate the hazard of that 3,400 feet of road that you cannot pass. There's not one piece of equipment I have at my shop can get through that. Not, if you've been down to that river, you'd understand.
I've been down there about 6 years
So-
ago. I went through it.
2010 took the entire dam out that used to be there, which was the road and the culvert.
Can I ask you a question, or is it, am I just the wrong time? Maybe it's the wrong time.
Go right ahead.
Is it okay?
As long as Mr. President says, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have spoken.
No, you know, I thought of this. Here's an issue of public safety. You know, I hear someone say, Scott Millar has a problem. Well, I would think anybody in the area, or the people that have to respond, you just spoke to the issues, Scott, that you've encountered, right? I mean, this is an issue we need to address. Are you close by? Are you somewhere over there?
Very close.
Okay. So, no, by all means, I think you should be engaged. And I was just told that a young lady from Nature Conservancy has just arrived. Hello.
Hi, how
Guess
are
what we're talking about?
you? Yeah, so
Did
I'm
someone
not sure
tell
how long
you?
the agenda, I saw the agenda. just
Oh, and you
didn't-
wondered, when should you arrive? Well, well-timed. 'cause you're
Yeah, good.
perfect timing. We understand you're amenable to this plan of abandonment with lock boxes and
Yes,
all of the rest of
yes,
it.
we are.
And we would think I would think it would be your advantage to want it closed, because I don't want fires, or who wants fires over there? That's scary. Okay, enough. Go ahead. Next.
I'm done, thank you.
Yeah, well, Ken was gonna do research for you, correct?
Yes.
Ken, wanna jump in here and tell
Right,
us about a process?
Pat, the clerk's office, provided some of the deeds and easements for the properties, and also some examples from the 1985 closures,
Right.
including the postings and the ads. It looks like it has to be in for 3 weeks, advertised, and there were 2 samples that were provided of the posting in the notifications.
Yeah, because and obviously the parties of great concern are the Nature Conservancy and the,
Peck,
and
Mr. Peck on the other side.
Everett Peck. and perhaps these coon hunters, is there an actual facility there?
Yes, there
I
is.
think there's a shack there, if I remember right, it's
There's
been
a-
a long time since I've been there.
There's a small building there for them.
But people go there and do
Yeah,
stuff.
then they had their annual meeting there last Saturday.
Okay, they would have people there. I mean, this is.
They'll still have an easement, right to the gate, no matter where the gate would be. They would have an easement out, they would have access anytime they wanted it.
They currently have a gate to stop them from going to their property now anyway, so the gate would just be moved up.
The only difference is they would have the responsibility of maintenance, is what they gain, is the Nature's Conservancy as well as Mr. Peck. It doesn't affect, the abandonment doesn't affect anybody else's property.
Well, that's what I'm asking. It seems like they're the ones that need to be properly noticed.
Well, everybody within however the circumference would have to be. That would include a few more people, but the large landowners is Nature's Conservancy and Everett Peck. And I talked with Mr. Peck and he said, Tower, don't care what you do beyond it, all for it.
I should think he would appreciate, well, you said it already is more or less closed, but.
Yeah, you cannot drive down that hill.
People can get to inside where there could be a problem from the other side.
When you go down and get into that wetland, like I said, it's been 7 years probably since I went through that.
2010 was the last time I even, before that,
Yeah, that river's completely running over that road now, so.
I went through it
200
with my
feet.
Jeep and,
Yeah.
well, I got through, but the water was going right through the door.
No, 200
But
feet.
for any way to rebuild that road, you wouldn't do it.
You couldn't afford to
You'd-
rebuild
You'd be in wetlands forever.
Yeah, no, that's a bad spot. It'd be a huge box culvert program down there.
Yeah,
Richard and I used to chase the kids out of there all the time from Peck's side, but as we were chasing them out, they just kept going deeper and deeper and deeper into the woods where we couldn't get in there.
my question, the lady from the Nature Conservancy, you own all the land on the south side?
Yes.
How
There's
many
some, we
how many
own
acres is
some
there?
on the north as well.
How many acres is on the south side?
It's probably at least a couple hundred. I've
And
lost
then on the
track.
north side, on the north side, how much do you have there?
It could be more than that. I think the whole preserve is probably roughly 600 acres.
And it's just the Raccoon Club and Everett, that's it?
Yep, Everett he's in favor of it. I told him he'd get a notification if it was to go forward, that everybody would obviously has to be notified for abandonment. By the towns, by the law, as well as the town's own ordinances.
And there would still be public access to the Nature Conservancy land by
Their
walking down
rules,
the-
their land, sure, that's whatever they say.
I think, yeah.
But they wouldn't, public wouldn't access it unless somebody there had the gate open? Is that what you mean, or?
Well, I mean, we live on, if I might, is it okay to speak now?
Yes, well, yes,
Yeah.
because I was reminded that you'd asked before. I said, you already did, you already asked Steve. Yes, please,
Yeah,
Steve.
so I'm Michael Viveris and my wife Suzanne, we live on the dirt portion of Stony Lane between the paved portion and essentially where you're describing to put the gate, just beyond.
I know where you live.
What's that? Yeah,
I know where you live.
Okay, and, so, I just wanna, I guess, confirm what everyone has mentioned about what goes on, in the woods and the partying and the public safety issues, the trucks, the very large trucks, unbelievable at times. And so, we certainly support the idea of what you're trying to do, for certain. I think, for me, the biggest thing I'd like to be sure of at the end of the day, I mean, one of the benefits of living where I do, and the Nature Conservancy is, in fact, in my, I own one side of the brook, and they more or less own the other side, and it kind of goes back and forth, and so my land abuts their land. But the idea that we can walk down an unimproved dirt road and get to the trails of the Nature Conservancy is not only a benefit, I think, to me, but to the public in general who lives along Stony Lane and in the neighborhood. So, I imagine that they're not gonna be shutting off any sort of
No, I mean,
access.
certainly walking access
Yeah,
there.
which is all that I'm interested in, so.
And the rest of the public access is off of the parking lot on Sunderland Road.
Correct,
So
yeah.
that's the actual public access to the
Understood,
property. So
yeah.
the only, it's not an issue, but we do allow hunting on the property, so having
Which I
an
understand.
area to park by that gate.
I wasn't looking for an area to park, or it's just
Yeah.
more the idea that, people walk down the road all the time, and they're, presently people walk and enjoy the you know, the dirt road is their path, and I think many people probably are walking, because there is access to the nature conservancy
Yeah,
paths
they can continue to
from
do
that
that.
side, and I think
Yeah.
that we just wanna be sure that that will
That
continue
will-
over
that's
time.
unchanged.
And that there's nothing that would happen that would prevent that, and so, other than
So
that, I
that
think
it's
it's truly a
their
public and safety issue, and
Can't sleep
Well,
at night
yeah.
behind the trucks.
Let me, if I could pull it together, I just wanna thank you, Scott. I mean, I heard it said that you were all out there and you've seen this, and thank you for that. And so, Ken, I'm gonna say, if a motion's in order that we begin the process, you'll help guide us through that, I assume. And I'm just wondering if a motion should be made that it seems like we might need to address this maybe in July. I don't know if there's gonna be time enough to get it done, but should we put it on the June agenda, and if things are ready, then we move it ahead to July? I mean, it's,
May I suggest, Mr. President, that with the summer quickly approaching, kids are gonna be out partying more. I think it's essential that we get it done as quickly as possible, and if a motion is in order, I'll make the motion that we put it on the June agenda for abandonment, and if we're not ready to do so at that time, we can always kick it over one more month.
It's gonna require Lynn to get notices out
Yes.
promptly, because I think it's three weeks
Advertise.
notices and advertisements, so.
In the meantime, Calvin, I had talked to Scott Gavin a couple weeks ago about this. Can we move ahead and throw the gates up now?
I don't know if you can do that without notice, Jim.
That's probably more problematic than you wanna go across.
Because I'd had to talk with Scott, and he says social media was all kids from Connecticut, and the state
Correct.
troopers sat there at the end of the road grabbing one at a time.
I know, I was there with
3
them.
o'clock in the morning, yeah.
wow. Well, let's take care of, was that a motion? you
Yes.
made? Well, let's second, and then if we wanna, once we approve that motion, if you wanna discuss something else, Dan, I'll turn to you, but.
No, that was one thought I had, because like you said, Manny said summertime and warm weather.
Well, there's a second, I believe, correct? The motion's made and seconded. Now, is the discussion, or you kind of made your discussion as part of the motion, I think. Your concern is, should we move ahead? We'll vote on this, and then you wanna discuss that for a minute
Yeah,
afterwards?
yeah.
All right, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. This will be the June agenda, and we will do, some people will do the best they can to make it happen, Madam Clerk. Dan, do you wanna suggest anything else?
Well, that was my question, if we could throw the gates up now and.
Well, we could, it's just location, I'd hate to have to move it and cost more money, that's the one thing. Because if we can get permission, I would like to put it at the corner. And I believe they'll give us that permission, but if not, I would have to put it up at the end of the property line, which is.
You said Everett has a gate up there?
He already currently has a gate at Sunland Road.
They don't go in that way yet.
They do,
Yes,
but
they
only to
do.
dump trash at the tower.
Yeah.
You can get in.
But no, that's, actually, that one, you can go in, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
You drive in there with a car. But if we just close, I asked him, I said, you mind if we just close that gate? It's not a problem. But again, we have to go into the Knox boxes and stuff, it's just not a dilemma, it's just added to the post with a key in it. So, but just, who has to have access? The people that work on the tower has to have a key. Mr. Peck has to have a key, this is property behind it, as well as the fire department, obviously. So, but that's all easy, but I just don't wanna have to move the gate. I wanna create another problem as far as having to move it twice. And if we can get permission to put it on the corner, it'd be awesome. It'd save us time and money.
Can I just ask, and the kids, people would probably destroy or take it away, is there any kind of a temporary thing, warning, posting, anything can be done?
Well, signage would
I
be
mean,
also posted out at New Road intersection.
But I mean, between now and when we move ahead, to Dan's point about.
Well, currently
how do
there's
we
a
keep-
pass it on risk sign. Legally, that's what I can put up.
That's a challenge.
I know it is, believe me, I know, but,
Yeah.
Scott, you don't.
We've heard
have
that some
any
people
thoughts
might- shouldn't
about
pass on
any
the cars
kind of
as you-
temporary, anything.
I agree with
Throw
Steve.
cable, but.
I would hate to
it's
see
easy
the
cut.
town incur additional expenses at this point.
Oh, I'm sorry, Scott, I'm thinking of Scott.
Scott's got a good idea, cables with the ribbon on it.
Too many Scots.
Closer to you, just was wondering, Scott in the back, Chief Scott.
Oh, the only thing I was thinking was a cable, you throw a cable up real quick, but, I mean,
With
they
some
can
ribbons
cut
on it
that,
so they
but-
don't drive through it. Yeah.
a temporary thing, well,
Run from tree to tree.
why don't you look at it, you wanna consider it? I mean, you know we're moving forward.
I mean, I can, but we'd have to make sure the right people have keys. Coon Hunters, Nature Conservancy, fire.
Can you go right after the Coon Hunters driveway and throw a cable up for now?
The party that they actually had was.
Week
was
before,
before-
before that,
before,
yeah. I was just gonna ask, that's what I was gonna say.
You literally
I
have
haven't
to
been
walk
down there in
it
a couple of years.
There
so-
there was a landing on the right prior to the Coon Hunters access,
Yeah.
and that's where they were partying, as well as at the Coon Hunters access. And beyond, obviously, but that was their main new spot.
Yeah, and then the thing is, you get the guys in the Coon Hunters club down there, they unlock the
Like I said,
cable
they just
and
had
put it back up, so.
they just had their annual meeting there Saturday.
Okay. Well, all right.
We can work on it.
Yeah.
Work on
Yeah,
it.
I don't hear any motion to that effect, so I think perhaps in the interest of time, we're gonna move to item 9B. Thank you, Scott, and all of you for doing what you've done. 9B, this goes to you as well, Steve. You would like to, if I understand, ask us to authorize issuing an RFP because you wanna take care of the last part of this building.
This will be the third phase of the heating and cooling upgrades for this building. We've done the back office and the town sergeant's office. We've done upstairs, and there's two separate systems. Now what we're talking about is this side of the building. Due to the construction method that they used to build this building, it's more problematic, it will be more money, but also more offices. But with technology improvements in the last year or so, it's a good thing we did wait, because we'll actually have a better system for this side. It doesn't touch the original furnace, which is right under this wall right here, in the basement. And the other whole front of the building is all crawl space, which would also have to be accessed for this project. But all the money was approved years.
Sorry, That's what I was gonna say.
In
Haven't
capital
we already
improvement for this
set
building.
aside
The money's
money?
already been approved and is setting that for this project. We just
Yes.
did it in phases to not disturb the entire building at once.
Yeah, and I think for the amount of money that we're gradually putting aside for Newtown Row, it's probably gonna be a while, so we better make this as serviceable as we can.
These are upgrades for heating and cooling, so, I mean, it's by design, same specifications we used the last two times. The companies have sent out an RFP, that's a request for proposals, they come in, they measure, they look, discuss with everybody, and they come back with a design build. And then we pick from that the best candidate for the project. Or no candidate, I mean, I've seen it go that way.
2 years ago, we had no bids.
We had no bid the first time, then one, the second one we got one. You'd think an AC upgrade would be right up there, it's all it is those, just modern. They do heat and cold, not just one or the other, so.
Well, in the interest of moving forward, I would move that we authorize Steve to go out or issue an RFP and begin the process of upgrading this part of the building.
Seconded.
Motion is made and seconded. Discussion of the motion.
One thing to discuss, when we put this out to bid, Stephen, try and contact New England Construction News, NECN.
I know that.
Yeah, because they just got people that go through legal notices, maybe they're not getting listed in that,
Yeah, I guess we can send them an email.
okay.
That's how it's usually sent out anyway.
Yeah, maybe, because I would think if they got a hold of it, that's going all over southern New England, the one, this edition, so.
Yeah, we can add that to the email list now.
What's it called?
New England Construction News, it's like a Dodge report, they sit there, they got people that just search legal notices looking for construction jobs out to bid.
They call me usually if we have something in a bigger paper.
Yeah, because we advertise in the Standard, they might be.
That's why they miss a lot of us. Every time we advertise in the Providence Journal,
They get it.
because if we have to use state or federal money, we have to advertise it, then they always call me.
Yeah.
But once you advertise locally, you can still, as
We can still send it to
suggested, send out emails to anyone.
And I have told them that that's our paper as well as other towns.
And then let them know it's out there. Other discussion? Those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. And Steve, you're on for item 9C. This is our solid waste recycling service agreement.
This is our what is it, every 2 years, I think we do this, a contract with Rhode Island Resource Recovery Corporation. The good news out of the entire packet you have there is no price increases in this 2-year contract. It will-
Weren't you expecting them?
I was expecting one
That's
in the
okay.
second year, but they took it out after 5 months of meetings between municipal people and Rhode Island Resource Recovery. They also didn't add in anything for schools, but they did make quite a few language changes. We've been beating them up for, like I said, about 5 months to correct a lot of them. Jim, I know, has reviewed it for his part. I won't take anything away from him, but you have until July if you wish to take another month to look at it, to sign it. But it's basically, it says that we will send all of our solid waste and recycling, approved recycling, to Johnson,
Which we've been doing
which we've been doing for
for a long time.
30 years.
You've
30 more-
reviewed.
more than that.
You've reviewed.
I have.
I've reviewed for legal form and it's
John has
fine.
reviewed. Your recommendation?
We'll be to sign it.
The motion on the table to approve accept the solid waste management agreement. Motion is made.
Seconded.
And seconded. Discussion. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, I should have said under discussion, thank you for reviewing it, and thanks for the good news about no extra fee. The next item relates to a little bit change, a little change in the agenda. We've been talking about transfer station lease. We are at a point now where we're going to move forward, and I have a statement I just want to read, just so you understand, because it's now coming up as transfer station purchase. I just would like to inform you of what's happened. A resolution will be presented to voters who attend the annual town financial meeting on June 11th to authorize the town council to purchase the current transfer station site from Jason Whitford. When the town's landfill was relocated to that property, where the transfer station is now situated on 10 Rhode, that property was leased from the owner, gradually increasing monthly rent for those approximately 25 acres, has been paid ever since. The current monthly payment is $1,025.46. Voters at previous financial town meetings have been approving tax dollars annually to be held in a segregated and reserved capital fund for the purpose of purchasing this property, or to relocate the facility to another site if necessary. This capital fund amount now totals $350,000. The previous council began, let me emphasize, the previous council began the purchase process, and the current council is now in receipt of a signed purchase and sales agreement in the amount of $290,000. Closing costs may be incurred by the purchase agreement. Those will also be covered by capital funds at no additional cost to taxpayers. I say that because some of you have heard this might happen, but you need to know we're at a point where we are going to move forward. I mean, this will be addressed also at tomorrow night's public hearing, and that's a place where, well, that's an opportunity for questions to be asked, for sure. I would only like to ask the council if they'd like to add something here that you think could be said to these folks tonight, trying to apprise them of the fact that we're moving ahead with this process. And by charter, we must address this at a financial town meeting. We can't make a purchase of that type without voter approval, which is outlined, the process outlined in the charter. You got it, folks? That's where we're moving. And I would only add, just parenthetically, that our treasurer, keeper of our funds, has been saying, can we do this? Can we do this, please? So I'm just letting you know that she's been waiting for a long time to see this happen. we're gonna move forward at the financial town meeting. It doesn't mean that we'll be able to purchase it immediately with a target date of July 1st or June 30th, but other extenuating circumstances may draw that out longer. If we have to continue to rent, we'll be able to do that. I'm gonna recommend the rent come out of the fund that's been set aside to purchase, because we know we're gonna be buying it, just a question of when. Otherwise, if we could move forward, I'm gonna move that we include a resolution to purchase this property on the docket of the financial town meeting on June 11th. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Motion is made and seconded, and Dan, thank you for seconding it. Dan and I both sat on the prior council when we moved forward with this as what we considered to be the best option for the town at this point.
I'd just like to add the comment, Calvin, that we started putting the money aside in 2011. So this has been a slow process, so, but the town won't incur any debt purchasing this. That's it, Calvin.
Thanks. Motion's on the floor to include that resolution. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Thank you. Now, let's see if we can move a little bit. I'm sorry, this has been time consuming, but we're gonna keep moving. Next item relates to the Wood Pawcatuck Wild and Scenic Rivers Commission, Protection Commission. I've forgotten, it's quite lengthy. We appointed a couple of, last month, I think, or 2 months ago, last month, we appointed 2 folks that expressed an interest. You've seen communications, I hope, Council, that
Yes.
indicate that the commission, I believe it's a commission, isn't that what it's called, here, a commission, is going to ask that we designate one of those people as the primary and the other as the alternate. We appointed 2 people. I would like to recommend that we appoint Peter Lackacher as the primary representative of Exeter on that commission. And I say that because in looking back at the letter he submitted to us and having a conversation with him subsequently, I knew he'd been involved. You should know that he was instrumental in setting up the Wood Pawcatuck Watershed Association. And this commission has grown out of that association. He served on the board of directors, and he also is its second president. In addition to that, he has a bit of a personal interest since his property abuts the Wood River, which is part of the process. So he'd very much like to be part of that process, and I think it's appropriate that he be appointed the primary designate. But did I make that a motion? Because I will make that a motion. Is there a second for discussion? There's a discussion. Hearing none, under discussion rather, I would ask Madam Clerk if we move ahead with this vote, that you would notify the other party that we've chosen, we urge her to attend these meetings, because they could both be present. If one is not as absent, the other can vote. Having said that, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. That's what Peter is primary, and then secondary would be Nan Clement. I'm sorry, I didn't mention that. It was a process of elimination, but we make that clear, that the other candidate, whom we appointed already, would be designated as the secondary, I believe.
Okay.
Right, and I believe that was it, correct? Can we move to F, please? Last week I received, and you may all know about this issue. I received an email, and I just have to let you know the sort of genesis of this item on the agenda. I received an email on the 26th of April. I'm only going to read a couple of sections. It came from a gentleman whom I don't know. It says, help me protect open spaces, and it goes on at some length. Just want to read a couple of pieces of this to you. On April 8th, the Downtown Design Review Committee voted unanimously to reject the Fane Tower. 3 days later, on April 11th, Senate President Ruggiero introduced the Rhode Island Special Economic Development District Enabling Act calling for Rhode Island cities and towns to relinquish or control over any 20 or more acre parcels owned by the state within their borders. You don't need that repeated, do you? Did you get that? Projo states that this legislation aims to create a more streamlined process for approvals on the state-owned former 195 land, but in fact, this act applies to every city and town across our state and not just the I-95 corridor. I'm not gonna comment on how it was written, I'm just telling you this. And then, let me just, a couple more sentences. What does the bill say? According to the email, this is a 12-page legislative proposal in a release from Ruggiero's office, and I quote, "The districts would have the authority to adopt development plans for land use, locations of buildings, street systems, dimension and height requirements, parking, landscaping, design review, population density," close quotes, and it says this would apply to statewide to any state-owned land over 20 acres. The state would simply declare the parcel to be a special economic development district and take full control. Now, he does go on to explain that 4 of the pages of this bill relate to the I-95 corridor. But when I read that, it just seems like we've been there before, and it obviously seems like at 27% of the state's property, 27% of the town's property is owned by the state. I mean, not today, someday, some kind of impact. And maybe we can't do anything about it. I told the story to a friend, they said, well, what can you do anyway? Okay, because we know the state has certain jurisdictions over property. We're not gonna go there at the moment, but I did address this with our vice president and with our planner. I said, what is this bill? I hadn't seen it, so they both looked at it. And the vice president wrote back and said, that we can't let this happen. And in the meanwhile, the planner said, perhaps we should reach out to Brian Daniels as lead executive director. So I've written this letter, and I want you to read it, counsel. If you object to it, then we'll send something else.
Calvin, I just have one
Time was
question
of the
before you
issue.
read that.
Yes.
Has there been a companion bill in the House submitted to this yet?
I don't understand that there has been. What I've been told is that it was heard Thursday night, and that it was held for further study.
It's dead.
So, well, that could be.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, if there's no House bill, you know?
And I understand.
You have to keep an eye on it, but.
That's my point, and to be dead. However, the bill, the legislation has a number of other senators that have signed on to the bill, and as soon as I saw that, I was a little concerned. I wrote this on our behalf to Brian Daniels, Executive Director, et cetera, regarding that bill. Dear Brian, I write to you on behalf of the Exeter Town Council and the residents of Exeter. I took the liberty of doing this, council, and you can tell me if I shouldn't have, to express my opposition to the above captioned Senate bill relating to the creation of special economic development districts. Please be advised that the state of Rhode Island owns approximately 27% of the real estate in Exeter, amounting to in excess of 9,000 acres. It is imperative that the town of Exeter maintain jurisdiction over the development / potential uses of these pristine state-owned properties. I have placed this proposed legislation on the council agenda for our regular meeting to be held next Monday night, May 6th. Meanwhile, I'd appreciate your support for our opposition to this legislation. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I did ask Planner Sweet if she looked at this email I received, and did she look at the legislation? She said she did. I said, does this email accurately portray what he said it does? And she said, yes, absolutely. You realize that I wrote, we'd like to maintain jurisdiction. Sorry, I know that's a little tongue-in-cheek, but I wrote on our behalf because I didn't think it was the best of bills. So that was submitted. Would you wish to take any other further action? Would you which, I mean, it's already gone. It's already been sent. I just placed it there because I didn't know how much you heard or knew, and Dan,
Who was the lead sponsor on that bill, Calvin? You gotta give him
the Senate president.
No, who was the sponsor on that bill in the Senate?
I don't know, but I thought it said it was he. Here is the
Should be right at the top.
section, introduced by, is that what you're talking
Yeah.
about? And who did I tell you? The Senate President?
Yeah.
Senate President Dominic Ruggiero, and McCaffrey, and, Lynch, and two other people, introduced April 11th to the Senate Judiciary. Anyway, I just wanted you to know, because if you heard about it, I want you to know I did that. Anything else regarding that item? Otherwise, we move to just, I'm sorry.
Do you want a copy of the letter that we submitted?
Oh, thank you for speaking. Just in relation to that particular item. Are you speaking about the Planners Association?
Yes. So I'm, for anyone that doesn't know, I'm the legislative liaison for the Rhode Island chapter of the American Planning Association. So we watch legislation like this, and we submitted a letter in opposition that I can share with the council if that would help describe some of the concerns that we have about the bill. But it's basically about home rule charter, consistency with comprehensive plan. And there is another bill in the General Assembly currently that's called the State and Local Partnership Act. That's a voluntary process where a community could go to the state and ask for technical assistance for development. We expressed that we would much prefer a optional approach where a community and the state could work together, as opposed to the state basically taking control and the town having to cede their local decision-making process. So I
Sounds
can.
like a much better plan than what I just addressed.
We think so as the planning community, that it would be much better as a partnership as opposed to a dictatorship where you essentially lose control of decision-making on state-owned land. So I just,
Is there a companion bill in the House to this?
not that I'm aware of at the moment. But I'd like to give you copies of the letter. It might help kind of describe what the planning association's concerns are with it.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thanks.
So we are watching that as well, and we, like I said, we did submit written testimony and continue to track that.
Thank you. Item G is an issue that we've addressed at a recent work session. And correct me if I'm wrong, council, but I believe the decision was we would hold that to further study, so we'll move that to unfinished business item for next month. Council, any objection to item G being moved to unfinished business?
Objection.
Hearing none, well, that's what we'll do. We move to item H, and this has to do with extending time to complete the comprehensive plan revision. I didn't place, I'm not sure who, Dan, did you place this on the agenda?
Yep, that's me.
Okay. Frank, did Frank perhaps? 'Cause I didn't ask.
Was not I.
Okay, that was Frank, okay. Well, with regard to the item, and I'm sorry, Frank, because I'm here if you put it on the agenda. I mean, I understand that originally 3 years, I think, was
3 years.
Maria. And I asked Maria for some statistics and money spent. Do you want to speak to this item, please?
So the motion as it was originally approved was 3 years or $36,000. So the 3 years.
This is financial town meeting motion, correct?
This was the motion to allow Ashley to work on the comp plan.
But it was financial town meeting motion, correct? No, it
No,
wasn't.
it was a
Oh,
regular,
it's here,
it was a
okay,
regular
okay.
meeting. And so the 36 months are up, so if you want to let her, allow her to continue, that would have to be extended.
Now, Maria, the 12,000 per year was each year that had to go to the financial town meeting, correct?
Well, we've been setting, so the first time that it came up, we had been setting aside amount of money in the planning board, just their supplies and expense item. But that went away every year, so the council decided to start putting aside money in order to complete the comprehensive plan. So every year we've set aside some money in order for this to be done. So I think I did break it down, the different amounts per year.
Yeah, 1755, that was in 2015.
That was the little remainder that came out before we started
Yeah.
setting it aside, yep.
But each year, the amount of money to do the work in the comp plan has to go before the voters.
Yes, and
Yeah.
it has done that.
Now, that's locked into the capital program. It's
Correct.
not, it goes into the general fund. if it
Correct, so
wasn't
there's a
used.
balance of 25,000 change in that fund right now. And that,
There's, how much in there right now?
Maria, we all got, you handed all of us the sheet.
I
did you
did.
not? Yeah, I had asked Maria last week, as we're working on the budget, to provide us with these figures so that we know what's there, what's been expended.
so right now there's 26,269, 26,269 in the capital program set aside for,
That hasn't been spent.
has not been spent.
Yeah, it indicate, thank you for this breakdown, because what you indicate is, that the total that's been expended to date is 10,000.
Correct.
So I think the question that many ask, not many, Ted and a few others, ask is, are we moving this forward? And my conversations with Ashley, which have been frequent, she indicates that she moves ahead with pieces, brings it to the planning board, they review it, and they address it, and then they authorize her, let's go on to the next piece. So is there something that is not correct with that approach, as long as we're just addressing it here tonight? I know you don't know that, Maria, but planning board members, and I guess, Scott, you're kind of new and recent. Have you seen that to be, that's the way it's progressed? Or Ashley, is that the way, am I correct in my presentation?
Yes.
And you told us a while ago, several of the sections of a total of, is it 9? Or what?
Yes.
That we need now?
Yep.
Several of them have worked through,
We have worked through several of them and have them in a form that the planning board has worked on all the language. There's still a few statistics that need to be updated, but we're currently working on the economic development element.
What's the total number of elements in the plan actually?
9.
Only 9?
Mhm.
And how many are done now?
So we've worked on land use, we've worked on open space recreation, we've worked on historic and cultural resources, we're currently working on economic development. And there'll have to be, those are of the existing elements, there are 2 elements that, and they don't have to be separate elements, but there's at least 2 pieces that will have to be addressed that are new requirements since the last plan was drafted. We have to address energy, and we have to address natural hazards.
And they're included in the 9 elements, or they're in addition?
They don't have to stand as their own element, but they have to be worked into the plan somehow. And also, since the plan was written, the new requirement is that your affordable housing plan has to be pulled into the comprehensive plan. It can't stand as its own
Not a
document
separate
anymore, so that will have to get pulled into the housing element.
It's in the comp plan now, correct?
It's as an appendix, but it can't sit as an appendix, it has to be rolled into the actual housing element.
So we've got 3 completed, and you're working on a 4th?
Yes. And one of the requirements also is an implementation element, which is essentially a table that identifies timeframes and responsible parties.
I was on the board when we did this the last time, and as David Schlide, as we went through them, he had to send them up to statewide planning, and then they would send it back for some of the dumbest things in the world. Do you still have, are you sending them up there like one element at a time?
You don't have to, you can send them in chunks, you can do them one at a time. We're trying to put together some of the more important, I don't wanna say important, but the more material pieces, and we wanna send those together to get a full review of those instead of doing it piecemeal one at a time.
So nothing's been sent up there yet?
Not yet. We're gonna put together a package and send that as one piece and ask for their review.
And how long do you anticipate them to take to look at it?
Well, they're required to respond within a certain amount of time. I'd have to check what that is, but I wanna say they have 60 to 90 days to respond. Their time frame to review and respond is not infinite. They are required to respond within a reasonable time frame.
When I asked you about this some time ago, didn't you say they were a bit rudderless for a while? They didn't have was there not a director?
There was some turmoil and changing of directors. I think they've gotten their
The things that.
they're putting their house in order now. They're actually in the process of hiring additional staff, so hopefully that will help them.
What is your estimate to complete it, time-wise?
I mean, we're working as diligently as we can between the other things that the planning board works on. You know, we're hoping to wrap up the economic development element, and I think we did have a conversation previously about the time-consuming part of this being the updating of data. Combing through census data and other facts and figures that are presented, all of those figures have to be updated. And so that's the more time-consuming process, is making sure that we're getting the information from reliable sources, we're getting the most up-to-date information, and then going in and updating those tables. A lot of the times we're creating new charts. The plan itself is, has some years into it, and so we are trying to bring it up to speed with current data. We're trying to improve the readability of the plan and make it a more user-friendly document as opposed to a 4-inch thick document that nobody wants to read. So we are working with the formatting as well and updating those facts and figures, and that is the more time-consuming part of it.
Are we looking at a year, 2 years?
I'd really think, I don't wanna make a decision for the planning board about how long this is gonna take. I hope that we can have it done in a reasonable time frame like that. We are certainly working towards that.
My concern is if we take another 2 years to finish it, you've got 3 elements done, are they gonna be obsolete?
I don't believe so. A lot of what we've done so far is worked on that language, worked on the goals and policies section. I don't think that, we're not making huge changes in terms of the overall plan itself. We're definitely updating data, but some of those updates are still in process, so I don't think we're gonna get to a point where the numbers that we're pulling now are gonna be out of date by the time we've compiled the elements. Data doesn't come out that quickly.
Can I insert here that I know this is gonna lead to the next item that we've been given some information on, and that's the next item under new business. Dan, we all know we wanted to move forward. I guess, the question I would ask of the planning board is, point blank, are they being held up because the work isn't being produced? And I don't think that's the case, but I can't ask you that question, Ashley. I'd love to ask the chair of the planning board.
He unfortunately had a conflict and could not be here tonight.
I understand. I would turn to Scott, but he's only just begun.
Well, since I've been on the board since, I guess, beginning of March, that has not been my experience that we're being held up by Ashley's work. It does take time for the board, obviously, to review these, and we have been, since I've been on the board, we've been reviewing a chapter each month to try to move it forward. And I think it's fair, I don't want to speak for the board, but I think it's fair to say that the board all feels that this is a top priority and we want to get it done as quickly as possible.
Didn't I hear from someone that a whole work session sometime last month or something was devoted to?
That's correct.
To that?
We've been trying to devote most, if not all, of the work sessions to just focusing on the comprehensive plan.
Thank you. You know, it's probably not realistic to say we extend it for 1 year, but maybe we should at least try.
You want to extend it for 18 months?
Well, my one concern is you're gonna have a census in 2020, and she's talking about data, by the time they get it done, that could be all obsolete, you know? Because a lot of your information is gonna be based on the US Census.
A good portion of it is based on census data.
Oh, maybe it should be, oh, yeah, but even if the census is done, doesn't it take a while to get that information back? I mean, maybe it should all be ready, and then the last piece is, here's the stuff that you need. Well, okay, I said a year, this gentleman said 18 months, Dan, any thought?
I have no comment.
Well, it needs to be done.
I'll agree with a year, Calvin, I mean.
Well, and that's probably not realistic, but at least a year from now, we come back and say, how about, how are we doing? You know, Scott's indicated they're moving forward. So I'll move that we extend the comp plan revision time of completion for an additional year.
I'll second that.
Another discussion probably isn't enough.
You can always extend it again.
Right. Discussion. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. But let's segue to the next item, because you've come to us when I read this. This is fascinating. Well, not fascinating, but you just talked about the collection of data. So what do you propose?
Well, I reached out to URI, what's left of what used to be the planning
Sure.
curriculum, which no longer exists. But they still teach a certificate program and they still have planning related classes. And so I thought it would be advantageous to the town to try to find an intern who works in some related field who would be willing to do some of the data collection, because that is the very time consuming part of this, is looking at what exists there now. The planning board and I are making decisions about whether the data that's there now is what we want to re-represent with updated data, or if there are facts and figures that we need to add to those elements to provide a better picture for the reader. The actual real time consuming part of that is going to find that updated data and then turning that into a chart or a graph or a table to then represent the information. So I thought that it would be expeditious to look to see if we could find an intern who would be willing to do some of that data collection. It would help speed up the process for the planning board. And so this would not be an additional expense in any way. It would, if we cannot, so my first thought would be if we can find somebody who would do it for credit or as a senior project or something, that would be great, but I realize that it may not be realistic to find somebody to do this, and that they may want an hourly rate to do that. And so I'm just asking for permission that if we are able to secure somebody to do it, and they do want to be paid, that we can use the existing fund to do that. So it would not be an additional expense in any way. It would come from the money that's already allocated, and my thinking would be that it would speed up the data collection process.
And from what I read in your proposal, it would be a significantly less rate of pay than you are paid, which would actually help to save some money.
Yes, I believe it would not only save time, it would also save some money. So I don't know if we will find a good candidate, but I thought it was worth trying to do that.
Comment?
Sounds like a no-brainer.
To me too.
If you could find an intern that would do it as part of their schooling, the problem you're gonna have is hiring an intern when you have a unionized workforce.
Well,
Because we do have part-time employees in this town, they are part of the union. So.
well, okay, if some intern came in from URI to do some work on a specific project, and union members wanted to grieve that somebody was hired to do a special project from URI, I suppose we'll have to deal with that. I would hope that they wouldn't. but they might, I suppose.
The governor's workforce will cover half of it.
Say that again,
I'd
Mike?
run it by your labor lawyer.
Say that again?
The
What did
governor's
you say?
workforce, the governor's workforce will cover half of an intern as long as you, I think you're paying like $14 an hour. So you get an intern for roughly $7 an hour.
It's, make a call to your labor lawyer.
Well, I think, okay.
I mean, an internship where there's no pay, there's no issue.
Yeah, okay, well, okay, fine. I think, Manny, you called a no-brainer. I would authorize or suggest or request you to look into it. I don't know how, Dan may say no. I would say look into it. Meanwhile, we can move ahead, but we can also ask a labor attorney if he sees that posing a problem. But in the meanwhile, I'm not so sure. It sounds like a great idea. I'm not sure you may not find anybody.
I don't know,
But-
like I said, there's no longer a full planning program, they teach a certificate program. I don't know if, and unfortunately, right now is not the optimal time of year because they're going on summer break, but the professor that I spoke to, asked for basically a description so that he could put it out there to see if there was any interest. It may not be that we find somebody over the summer, but maybe beginning in
maybe in the
September,
fall.
they can, and we can continue to do the work until then, and then, try to set somebody up. I don't know about the labor issue thing. I know that throughout college, we were required to do internships. I never ran into
Yeah, but
any.
did you get paid?
I did.
I didn't think you
Did,
needed
for a
to be
municipality,
Oh.
so I don't know, I mean, that was a long time ago, I don't know if things have changed,
Well,
but.
Mike, I know you spoke, haven't you spoken to Ashley about this? I know you
Yeah,
said
I mean, I
something
think
about
it makes-
governor's task force or whatever.
Yeah, I gave Maria the paperwork on what we would have to fill out if we were able to find an intern and they didn't want to do it just for credit. Then the
Well,
governor's workforce
And I-
board comes in.
I did write a short description, but did not pass that on to the professor until I knew that the council would be okay with the arrangement.
you don't mean here, you mean another description.
I wrote a
That
short
you're not-
description of what we were looking for,
Okay.
so that if it is allowed to be further investigated, that I could give that to him and he could see if anybody's
I think
interested.
it's worth a try. You wanna move?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Move that we request Ashley to pursue this?
Yeah, I'll move that we request Ashley to send the description along to the planning department, what's left of it. And, I guess,
Keep
wanna
us,
keep it on the
keep us
agenda.
posted.
Sure,
We can move
Absolutely.
it and tell us
yeah,
a little while from now if you have any luck. And
Sure.
as Dan said, or you said, it may not be till the fall.
that's true.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Other discussion. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Ashley, good luck.
Thank
See
you.
what you can do. Thank you. Next item, I got a communication from the Rhode Island Small Business Association, and the credit indicates, and let me read the letter, please. Every year, the President of the United States declares this the first week of May as National Small Business Week. During this week, Governor Raimondo also declares it to be Rhode Island Small Business Week in order to celebrate the successful small businesses here in the state. This year, we want to take one step further. We're asking all cities and towns to declare it a Small Business Week in their community. And by doing so, you would help kick off this annual celebration, help honor the great small businesses in your local community as well as around the state. And I've enclosed a list of winners, and they indicate there could be a proclamation. It's terribly late, well, it's May 5th, May 6th, so I just suggested that Lynn put it on the agenda and we would vote to declare this first week of May as Small Business Week in Exeter. So I would make that a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Look, try to, there are small businesses, we know it, so this is your week. Those in favor of the motion, say
Aye.
aye. Opposed, so voted. And now, Steve, a tree issue.
tree issue.
Evelyn Green, for those of you who do not know, was a longtime town clerk here in Exeter. And apparently, some years ago, a tree was planted here in her honor.
Dedicated
And
by the
it
council.
doesn't survive.
It will not survive in this
Would
climate.
you want
Is
to,
that a dogwood?
It is a purple plum.
I'm surprised it even lived that long.
Yeah.
The problem with the purple plum, and I know Mike can speak to it as well, but they got root rot issues. And the high water table, this location and the type of material we have in the ground here, we've replaced it 3 times. Shauna's donated 2. Because they're saying it should grow and I'm saying it won't. So we've planted it, we've tried, we've changed roots, we've changed root wall, the way you plant a tree, we've done a few different things and fertilizers, and it's not gonna grow yet. The ground here is no good for that particular tree. Other trees, dogwood, no problem. Dogwood would grow and be fine. It's just the type of tree has issues in
So
this.
you need to get a new tree.
I need a rededication with a new tree name before I can change a tree.
What kind of tree you gonna get?
A dogwood, please.
A dogwood. One that's already dug and balled, I hope.
Well, one right next to it has been perfectly fine for 15 years.
That's what I was thinking
You're
was
gonna
that one.
specify
Yeah.
again?
Yes, I would like to well, we can specify a pink dogwood.
Yeah, but-
Actually, I don't care whatever tree you like, but
Choose it.
her daughter said she liked dogwoods. So that's the only reason I'm saying dogwood.
We have a white one, the pink one would be pretty, but I'm saying don't get specific on the tree in case the dogwood doesn't make
Well, the
it.
pink one's a Cherokee, so.
But then that's the family of tree that I guess that she liked, so that's why that was a recommendation of the family.
entertain a motion that we authorize Steve to proceed with that process?
Second, I'll make that motion, Mr. President.
A second.
Did you want to consult with somebody over here that does that kind of stuff? Just
I
in
will get it
case.
taken
I
care of.
wouldn't go straight
No,
to
it's
narrowing it down other than the dogwood, because then you can pick
we're
the
not.
best looking.
We have some other choices.
Good, we didn't specify in the motion, I believe, did we?
Did not.
No.
Just to remove it as a purple plum would be fine with me.
Okay. Other discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Steve, for working on that project. And the last item on the new business, Frank has asked that he would have spoken to it had he been here, and when he called me this morning, and I could barely understand him, he said, I could send you an email. I said, it's okay, Frank, because I understand you'd like to pass this thought on to the planning board. I wanted to say, have we not given them enough, but he would just like us, as the council, to have, ask the planner and planning board to review our current ordinance and see whether or not he thinks there are some amendments and that might be.
The current ordinance we got was shoved down the town's throats, I think it was about 4 years ago, when they came up with statewide mandates.
Would have been more than that.
And they
More than
made all
that.
the towns adopt it, so probably give us copies of that. Pretty much the ordinance follows that, if I remember right, doesn't it?
Within reason.
Did you have to be licensed as a soil erosion specialist?
No, I did work on that with David.
I think Ron did.
Ron, I think did, yes.
So the planning board has already, this came up internally in the building department, and I know there were some letters that went out based on this erosion and sediment control ordinance from the building official. And so Lori and I, in the planning department, working with Ron, created an actual application. Because prior to those letters going out, there was no application to file, so if you needed to follow the soil erosion and sediment ordinance, there was no actual form of application to fill out. So Lori and I, again, worked with Ron, created an application for this, passed that application along to the planning board just for their consideration to take a look at it, to make any suggestions. And during that conversation at our last meeting, we started to discuss the ordinance itself, and the planning board said, why don't we take a look at the ordinance and see if there are any updates that we can make to the ordinance, because a lot of the regulatory framework at the state level may have changed since that was drafted. And fortunately, Scott has, you know, a wealth of information, a wealth of knowledge about these topics. Chris Palmer knows a lot about these issues, so we are going to work on it with their assistance. They have a good knowledge base of the issues, and so we are gonna take a look at it.
Well, then it sounds to me as if there isn't really a motion that needs to be made. You're already working on it.
We did already start the conversation at our last meeting, and they did ask to have this brought up on the next agenda. So I'll be supplying them with a copy of the existing language, and Chris did offer to take a closer look at it, being that he kind of deals in these regulations through his everyday life, and take a look at it and see where we could make improvements, or where we could even simplify the ordinance itself and refer it back to state requirements, so that as the state requirements change, ours doesn't become out of date with that.
But then could I just suggest that under this new business item L, that we just have clerk make a note of the fact that the planning board is already reviewing this ordinance, and it was addressed here this evening. Unless you have an objection, we'll move on.
No objection.
Let's move to unfinished business. I would say we can take media coverage off, except that I was told this week that the Standard Times is still working on getting a reporter. They got one. They got sent to East Greenwich because the pendulum reporter left. So I'm told just this past week by Alex Trivia. So let's leave it on one more month. Historic preservation, cemeteries, anything? No, I just want to make a note for the record that we did ask Sheila, you remember Sheila Reynolds came to us and indicated that someone wished to make a donation, and Madam Clerk has said that she's followed up with a letter, but we've heard nothing. I just wanted you to know, if you remember, 2 or 3 months ago, there was a request, and so nothing's been done.
Should we just remove that unless there is something that we can put it back up?
We could, except sometimes, I mean, something may come up, we don't have to do anything about it. I'd only say,
Well, we have to do some renovation work, but,
what'd you say, let's do some? Well, once we get through the FTM,
Yeah.
we'll charge you with looking around to see, let's charge him with looking at historic renovations,
well, do the tour again.
preservation. Okay, let's leave it for now. Impact fee study, anything.
Yeah, the draft is complete, and the consultant is just waiting to hear from us when we'd like to meet in the work session.
All of us,
Everybody,
the council.
yes.
Okay. What do you think after the FTM?
I think so.
Probably, let's get that out of the way. Chris, Maria's involved in that process as well. She's gonna be a little bit busy getting ready for and then following up after the FTM, so we'll leave it? No,
She's very busy.
don't. The state requires so much from her. D will retain, but we passed by that, as well as E.
I mean, E we can do on the same night, work session as the impact fee study.
With the impact fees, moving forward, okay, we'll keep that on, we know we need to address it.
Those two.
I understand, Dan, under F, that the pilot legislation was
Well,
also.
they scheduled the hearing for
Thursday
last Thursday night when we
Right.
had our budget meeting, so we found out at 1 o'clock the day before that they had scheduled
Right,
it,
I
so
heard that.
we had Representative Price speak to Representative Abney and try and reschedule it, and keeping my eyes open, But same thing when you had a thing with the issue with the Senate legislation, the same time they did it,
I know. Well,
There was no way I could get up there by the time they
Well,
had a
no.
hearing and make it back to this meeting.
well, and I think that the point where the pilot money's being rolled back, we just hope.
I did talk to Rep. Abney up there when I was up there about a month ago on another issue, and he remembers us, so, he's a very, very cordial person, so.
We just saw the fire academy on yesterday's news, And there it is, but nothing from the state. Anyway, thank you, Dan.
We're not removing any of those, right?
I beg your pardon?
We're not removing any yet.
Not yet. No, I know we wish we could. How about G, information management support services?
Wait, since the last time we met, it was on a work session. James Angie, who's working with us, part of the review team, has contacted 2 vendors. He stated that he will put the results of his conversation in writing with the questions that we had. And then we'll be able to provide the council with a recommendation. Hopefully very shortly.
So you'll probably sit one more time maybe with him and review his recommendations and then
So what he
come
heard
with
back
us.
from,
Please?
what he heard back from the vendors.
Right,
It was
well,
just-
he'll share what he knows, and then you'll decide what you want to recommend of the two responses.
Any day now, we should have the
That's good,
results.
that's good. Are your computers working at the moment? I mean, you
Yeah,
know,
oh, yeah.
I mean, because,
No, it's
you know.
all right.
Good, thanks, Ken. We will take some of these off eventually, off the agenda. We have nothing from H and I don't wanna take them off until Frank's here. Comprehensive plan revision, basically we've addressed that. Ashley, if you don't mind, Ashley's already, we've spent some time on this item, so I'm gonna leave that alone and move on. Okay. Manny?
Okay, so town hall hours, I did a little more research into the trend in the state and other municipalities as far as hours that town hall is working. And, you know, I suggested this be put on the agenda because I thought it was a good thing. I still think it's a good thing. I just don't think it's something that'll fly in Exeter with the small amount of workforce that we have. And like I said, the trend wasn't as much as I thought it was. So I think I just asked this item to be removed from the agenda.
Yeah, but thanks for exploring it. I mean, it's
Yes.
come up before, and thanks for looking into it, Manny. I have no problem.
Touch it down.
What,
I
please?
think I was the only guy that voted against that last year, and the girls were thanking me.
So is there a motion to remove it?
I would make a motion to remove that.
I'll second it, Manny.
Sure. And Manny, you're on for L as well.
So the website is something we are actively going. We did form a committee. The committee met for the first time last week. There were 5 people on the committee, myself, Councilman Khan, Amy Nielsen from the library, Monique Hauser, and Lynn. We come up with some general ideas on what we want to do for the website. There's absolutely no doubt that the town website needs to be updated. We're looking at other towns like Richmond, Hopkinton, both have very, very good websites. We're not gonna reinvent the wheel. We're gonna be meeting again next week. More than likely, it's gonna take 10 meetings in order to get the content down. Lynn's come up with some great ideas. So I'd ask us to keep, stay on unfinished business, Mr. President, and I'll keep on updating the council as we progress.
Good, thank you. And you want to deal with that
Sure.
too, please?
So iPads, definitely something I still want to go to. It's just been put on the back burner because of the website and the budget sessions. I'd ask that it be kept on the unfinished business. Probably sometime during the summer, I'm gonna work with Lynn and the other clerks to get everything downloaded that's sent to me on my laptop, so I can come in and demonstrate. So if you can keep that on unfinished business, Mr. President.
Sure. Now, here's an item I hope we can remove. You remember last month, we addressed the letter that we received from Town Sergeant Donovan. And since we met, and I don't think I had this information when we met last month, there are two. I talked with DEM folks, legal counsel, who also had been talking with the administrator, and they pointed out 2 sections of chapter 31, and they indicated to me that there should be some minor modifications. and could be. They've looked at it. So here's what I've done. I wrote, we drafted a letter, and it's not gonna go out until you folks approve it. To Senator Morgan, to Representatives Casimiro and Justin Price, regarding Rhode Island General Laws 31-3.14 and 31-23.210, because these are the ones that I was given that we should focus on. This is what I've written, and this is a draft because I want to run it by you. If you approve, it goes out tomorrow. At its monthly meeting on May 6th, the Exeter Town Council voted unanimously to support a request from our town sergeant to continue to conduct vehicle identification number inspections. Despite a long-standing practice, it has been determined that 2 sections of Rhode Island General Laws Title 31 require amendments. These amendments have been recommended by the Department of Motor Vehicle Administrator and reviewed by their legal counsel. We respectfully request your support and assistance in the adoption of these amendments to those specific chapter sections. Copies of these sections are enclosed with this letter. Allowing these VIN inspections by a town sergeant provides a convenient service to Exeter's residents. Members of the council express their appreciation in advance for your assistance in this matter. And these pieces of legislation are here. They didn't print out in color here, but they're highlighted on this page. And so if you approve, we'll send that out. I think that's the best way for them to work their magic behind the scenes and make these corrections. And that was, again, I've had several conversations with the legal counsel. So that's where we're at, and I would entertain a motion that we forward this letter along.
I'll make that motion, Mr. President.
The second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Let's hope that we can get that. I mean, it's been happening, but it's been happening through other communities, the connections being made, but this is gonna be much better. And so let's see what happens. Thank you. Those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Next item, we are at the clerk's suggestion, we remove item P, and that was never pursued. Madam Clerk, did you want to speak to that? Am I correct in suggesting? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yes, it's right here looking at me. And these are the memorandums of understanding, or memoranda, that Ken, at some point, you're gonna work on. I'm sorry.
I've talked with Stefan about them, and we're gonna get a draft out.
Yeah, and work with him to do what needs to be done. I'm gonna leave it on the agenda.
I've been working on it.
Thank you, along with the budget and all your other projects. Thank you, thanks for stopping me. Now to P, I understand he hasn't pursued, so
He is not he's
probably not able at this point. So I would recommend, I move that we remove item P from the agenda. Second, those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. And the item Q. I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
You were away, because we did this last month, but you weren't present, we couldn't complete it.
Oh, all right.
So thank you for being here.
Oh,
And I'm speaking to, I only know this because Lynn told me that this is the gentleman who's here from Helen's Food Services, correct?
Correct.
Thank you for waiting, I'm sorry. You were very patient.
I was learning a lot of stuff.
You want to come back again next month? No, it's okay. Now, Madam Clerk, talk to us about the application, would you?
Yeah, Helen's Food applied last year. It was, the application was approved subject to him providing the rest of the requirements. He never did, so the license was never issued. So he came back to apply again, but we're still missing all the documentation.
Correct, but I'm waiting for power from National Grid. They wanna run the power off of Yago Road, and there's no power on Yago Road. There's a negative line on top, but there's no positive line. So it's been 9 months. Now there's a new engineer working on it. They don't wanna run the line right from the other side of Route, 2, over. They wanna run it up Yago Road, but there's only a negative line on the power line. There's no positive line. So that's what we've been waiting
So
for.
you want to pursue it, but you can't because you can't operate without.
Well, we put the pole in, I finally got a lady engineer, and we put the pole in not this Sunday, but the Sunday before. So this month here, we should be getting power in.
Oh, good. Well, you know, Madam Clerk would say if you want the job done, ask the woman, so.
No, she was good. I worked in New York, so the line up during the daytime, we just would back and forth, we put a stake in. She said, fine, but now they have to run the line up Yago Road, the positive, because there's a negative up there, but there's no positive, there's no power there. And they don't wanna run the line all the way from the other side of the road over. It's too far a distance.
Do you think that it can be resolved? I mean,
I just don't wanna run a generator. There's houses around and
Steve is saying it can be.
It can be done, there's only a few pole lengths, it's not that far.
no, it's not, but
Well,
it's.
I'd
You don't
suggest,
spend any money.
Madam Clerk, I'd suggest we approve subject to, and then if
So
it
that's-
happens, it happens.
Right, that's all I'm
Unless
asking
you
for.
wanna wait for another month, Madam Clerk, no. What,
Well, he paid $200 last year and never got the license. You think it's
Oh,
gonna
that's
get
fine.
done this year?
No, it'll be
You
done,
got
it's just,
$200.
I didn't wanna run a generator, that's what I didn't wanna do. There's houses there, there's neighbors there, so.
Do you
Something
want us to
depend-
approve
Yeah.
it? You think you're gonna go forward this year?
Yeah, it'll go one way or the other, yes.
but we understand it won't be issued until
That's
the
fine,
clerk
that's the
receives
same
what she
with-
needs,
Correct,
okay?
that's fine.
I think out of the patience of you sitting here for the last 2+ hours, we should at least do that for you.
No, but I learned your operation.
Are you sure you still want to operate in Exeter? Anyone wish to approve his license subject to?
I'll make that motion that we approve it subject to,
Conditions that need to be
Yes.
met.
Thank you.
I'll second it. Appreciate your patience. Discussion, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Good luck.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
good
you
night.
for, good luck to you. We go to item R.
We never got another, an application for a renewal.
So it was, okay, so I would ask that you remove this from the agenda. Does the council wish to vote? It's a motion, second. Those in favor say aye. 2 items removed from unfinished business. Now we go to report. Ken, do you want to say any more to us other than what we've already done?
Nope.
We've
All
already
set right now.
addressed. Jim, a little heads up of any kind?
No, we had another very busy month. As you all know, one thing that's happened that's a little bit new is that the Arcadia matter. Richmond had their meeting before one of the judges of the Supreme Court, and that judge felt, rather than just having it on an abbreviated briefing schedule, that the matter should be on a full brief, which is interesting because it means that they're gonna have to tackle the issue on, head-on. And so, when that happened with Richmond, they also revised our order to make it no longer just the abbreviated show cause hearing, but it's now gonna be on full hearing. So it's gonna require a little bit of reworking of the memoranda, but that shouldn't be a big deal.
Jim, how long has that case been going on now? 2 years?
Yeah. I
Because
think
I
it's
had
in
that thought,
2020.
the other day, they had awarded the low bid to a company. And then they brought them in and renegotiated with 3 low bidders.
Yeah,
With the price of building material,
They-
I would almost think they would have
You know
to
what,
bid that project.
they had some kind of an arrangement because they basically placed it on hold and I think advised that
I don't think
contract.
they'd have to rebid that whole project.
I
with
don't know
materials.
what they're doing. All I know is that they aren't they don't seem particularly concerned by the fact, they haven't been pushing, let's put it that way. They haven't been trying to advance it and expedite it because of any outstanding contractual issues that they might have, so. Again, we're looking at a full briefing that's gonna happen this summer, those full briefs will be in. We're probably not gonna get heard until the fall term at the earliest.
Yeah, because I've had some people question what's going on, so.
Right. So it's moving, I mean, they're gonna tackle the issue, so that I'm really
In all
happy about.
probability, the state would have to rebid the whole project, I would think.
They might,
Unless
they
the
might.
low bidders
Well, there
don't
could be
enough to take
changes,
it.
there could be changes as a result of this. If we win, I know one of the things that Richmond has always said was that the project would be a good one if it was across the street.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, and
Up on
so,
the hill?
well, yeah, and so, I mean, that could very well happen even if we win the case entirely. So, there's probably gonna be some tweaking to it one way or the other, or if the state wins and the court finds that we have no jurisdiction over the issue, so be it. And it'll go forward, but again, we're not looking at anything until probably at the earliest the fall, as far as I'm concerned. The rest, you all know the various cases that have been going on, the amount of work that's been going into it. We just did file the summary judgment motion in the moratorium case, 2 remaining active counts, and also in the De Gregorio appeal of the green ordinance. In that case, we basically submitted our interest to the court, basically because prior town council had a position on it in that case. This town council has a different position. Planning board's always had a consistent position. It's up to the court to determine whether or not the green energy ordinance is in compliance with the comprehensive plan. That's what happens on appeal, that's what judges do. So I've asked the court to tee that up and also to tee up the issue in the moratorium case. And depending on what happens, it looks like we've got a brief oral argument scheduled for the end of this month. Now, if there are counter motions, that might get extended, but we are marching towards a decision on that one. And if it goes our way, we could have a quicker termination to many of these suits than anybody anticipated. If it doesn't, then we keep trudging on. But we're moving. Is that it?
Yeah, in my opinion, masterful submissions, thank you. Thank you very much. Let me just speak quickly to Carrie's report, and I'm sorry there's no one left here, because she's concerned, as we all are, that we don't know what the status is of the phase-out, because, and I don't know whether this has changed recently, but if you all remember, the governor's proposal was somewhat different than the speaker's, and she did, you all got a copy, so, you know, I don't need to reiterate, except for the 2 or 3 of you, you should know this piece. This is the middle of a letter that was sent to, by Brian Daniels, the League of Cities and Towns, to Nicholas Mattiello, Dominic Ruggiero. In the middle it says, with the state budget normally not completed until June, communities do not know whether to assume current law or expect changes when drafting their municipal budgets and preparing their property tax bills, most of which are issued between May and early July. What she writes is, I intend on assessing all motor vehicles per current state law that mandates that all vehicles be assessed at 85% of the nada value, and the minimum exemption amount be set at $3,000. All vehicles older than 15 years, 2004, will no longer generate a taxable value. And that's fine, but her real concern is that if this changes and the tax bills are issued, then it's going to require the issuance of supplemental bills, which has happened on occasion. And when people get a supplemental bill of $8.91, you know, a lot of people tend to just ignore it or whatever. And it becomes this incredible process for what happens internally. So let's hope that something, does anybody know if that's changing? Is Mattiello's plan moving forward? We don't know that, do we? Okay.
I had a chat with Carrie Friday, we're not gonna know till June 30th.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, but it's not gonna be pretty if things change.
2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, well, whatever, because she can't wait that long, because the road has to be certified and all that stuff. Then I wanted to speak to a letter that we got from the council. Once again, so few people here to hear it, but there was a problem down the street at what's called the Hut across from Reuben Brown Lane. And there were issues there. I got a call, I happened to be in Chicago, but I indicated I couldn't really help. But it was only a courtesy call from Stefan. And here's the end of the letter. At this time, I want to recognize the efforts and quick thinking of building official Randy McGovern and building department clerk Lori Field. Their actions assisted in the quick restoration of this facility and its functions. There's no detail here. I had a lengthy conversation with Stefan. You may have as well, Mary, I don't know, but it was quite a process he got into. And he couldn't say enough about how Randy stepped up to the plate with help from Lori. So I just want to mention that. Kudos to them. I think that was all that we removed. Under administrative issues, we just have something that we need to tell you. It has to do with a special meeting.
Yeah, so that special meeting for the truck pullers is gonna be Monday at 7,
Monday,
okay?
I know, it's been all over
Can we
the
make it?
place.
I know it has.
instead of the Thursday you were trying to
Yeah,
say.
But that's not Lynn's fault. That's really mine.
You've got,
Third Monday?
No, it's the second, and it's the one that's always set aside for this room. And I probably cannot be here, but if you folks would please come, we need 3 people to approve a
you
license.
3 are available, right?
Can you come, please?
Remind
Sure.
me.
7 o'clock, it should be,
5 minutes, if that's all we
Yeah.
put on it.
and we do this for the truck pullers because they have done a lot through the years, and
Beer.
we're just trying to help them out, so.
There's nothing else we're putting on it, I don't think, at this point. Oh, you have some?
No, but guess what? Tomorrow is another day. No, I don't think so.
I have to
But
post
it
it.
will be a special meeting, and if it was something you felt we needed to address, let us know, let us know.
I have to post it Wednesday.
You're looking at me like you got some thoughts
So
on
we have
it?
the final decision on the RFP for IT services.
If you have
That's
it.
supposed to be tonight, right, according to our timeline, the awarding of it.
Oh,
So,
from the folks that submitted the RS, I mean, I know we said that.
yeah.
But you think you might be ready to make a recommendation by next Monday?
If I receive the information from James,
Okay.
and then we get a chance to meet and get the
Would you like
scores
to
from
have
those,
us
so-
put that on in the event, and if it doesn't
Well,
go,
how about, when you gonna post it, on Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
do you wanna let,
Check with you?
Yeah, if we don't get it by tomorrow, obviously,
and we'll be here tomorrow night again, so,
yeah,
so maybe we'll
You
know.
can always vote
Right.
possible action and/or
yeah.
to that effect.
Okay? That was something that, we went back, Lynn, that's really not, it's my fault. But we decided on Monday because it's the night we're supposed to be here anyway, and anyway, that's what we're gonna do. Communications, folks.
Mine are all set, Calvin, it's all yours.
I just wanted, there's no one here to tell. Well, it's announcing a free, there's a veterans breakfast on it's Saturday at Rhode Island National Guard Armory in Warwick, and it says share the flyer, and it's breakfast is free for veterans and their families, Saturday.
What is that?
It's number 21. I'm a little concerned by number 24. I know Stefan was copied, and these are the non-complete and somewhat high-risk dams. It looks like they're pretty much all, I think they're all, I mean, they're privately owned, I think. So I don't know, I know Stefan's worked on this, but does anybody, nobody's, well, he's been copied on this, and I just wanted to say that, even the Boone Lake, I see, which is, well, maybe this is a little old, but it's still a high concern, a high risk, hasn't been,
It has not been down
it has been not, no, it's.
still a high risk. It'll always be a high
It'll
risk.
always be a high risk.
It'll always
What
be,
they
it
do.
could be brand new, it'll still be a high risk.
Okay, well then, I guess we don't have to
It's to
worry.
do with the dead-end road and residents.
Well, the amount of water, the houses downstream and.
There's a lot to it, so it'll always be
Same
high
with
risk.
Dorset Mill, and that was totally rebuilt.
Moving on to my 28, Steve, did you review, there was a request?
I did.
I'm not sure what we should do.
Councilman Khan asked me to look into it, and I did. I've looked over my report from March. We had actually patched potholes on the Friday prior to this event, as well as the same day as the claimant. We patched both days. We've done a lot because of the high
Because
water.
of the weather.
Weather,
Yeah.
that water and patch don't get along. Temporary patch is just that, it's temporary. We don't have a hot box to do hot asphalt in those weather conditions, especially March. So, yes, there was a pothole there. Yes, we did patch it. Well, I just want to let you know that we did patch the Friday before and day of. So, I find it difficult that it was there that night, but if it was raining that day, then it could be there. So, but I do know there was a pothole there, I know the exact location.
How much was the damage?
Very minor, actually, it's $240.
268.41
I got
is the bill, or 285.
$235.35.
I have 29, oh yeah, that's, oh.
Yeah, you gotta look at the
I see
letter.
it. I see it, 235.
235.35.
35.
It didn't flatten the tire or bend the rim, it just
It looks like-
destroyed the cords in the radial tire. They drove it to the repair shop. And
But
it
you
needed a
can't-
tire.
But
and a
it
balance.
needed to be replaced.
Fine.
So,
No, I'm just saying, it's not due to negligence on the town's part at all. Because
no,
we were patching actively twice in the same timeframe. Actually, it's day up. So, and they did call, leave a message on the machine at night, so that's what I got.
they tried.
They did try. I mean, we did patch potholes, obviously, but it's a bad spot on that road. It's an active spot. We patch it there twice a week normally.
You didn't have to replace the rim, huh?
Not according to what I can see in the photo.
Oh, we got lucky.
Yeah, well, a mag rim on a Jeep, Liberty.
Does that require a motion, Mr. President, to reimburse?
I think it does.
I'd make a motion that we
We've done it in the past.
We have,
Yes.
So.
And Mike, you discussed that you.
What is it, they have to make the claim within 10 days, is that what it is?
I wish we would pass some kind of a ruling.
Isn't there like a state law? There's
There
like
is a
policy. State law.
There's a state law
Yeah.
for the state of Rhode Island, and they require very specific timeline of events have to happen. The town has no policy. Realistically, we should look into a policy, whether you want to adopt a similar one to DOT
Yeah.
or not, because they basically just become a handout of money.
I think we should.
I think in 8 years, that's the third one.
Well, we've rejected, I can recall probably at dozens,
Yeah.
and we've rejected in the
Well, I can
past.
remember one, I think the guy wanted to basically replace everything on his car.
Lady hit the culvert head wall on Hog Hill. She was pushed off the road by an oil truck and tried to get us to pay for her car. So they've rejected many in the past that were large number ones, but
I
we
can
truly
remember
should put a
This would be
policy.
the third one that we've paid out.
In the last 2 years or 3 years, I'd say this is the third one.
You're right, I'm gonna draft an ordinance.
Yeah, I would look at the DOT's policy, but I wouldn't go with it completely. It needs to be stringent. We have a lot of obstacles on the sides of our roads, unlike the city of Providence.
That motion was made, and there was a second, was there not? Second by Mike. Other discussion, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. And the last one, you may have read your communication from the Rhode Rovers. I saw it, it's number 32. I thought perhaps we ought to just to be a bit proactive, and I forwarded it along to Town Sergeant Bill Donovan, and he's well aware, he's worked this before. It's not something new. It's a traffic control issue. Bill, you told me you will discuss with them, the Rhode Rovers?
I called and spoke with them this week. Their routing isn't complete yet, but it's gonna be the same or very similar as it has been in the past. Been no issues that I'm aware of. But he's gonna get that to me well ahead of time.
Yeah, the letter specifically asks that the club was requesting approval from the council to hold 2 motorcycle rallies. I don't recall that we've done an official approval in the past, but just so that you're aware, so we keep it above board, not above board, but all clear. Why don't we put this on the June agenda, and you will already have done your work. I mean, Bill says it's really a traffic control issue. So I'll place this on the June agenda for approval. Okay? Any question? Dan, you want to say something about it?
Oh,
No. Glenn, can you add that to the business? Thank you, Bill, for that. No other, what other communications?
We did all mine.
Good. Yeah, other pieces. Good. Then I will move that we enter into executive session on matters relating to personnel.
Seconded.
Potential, I don't know if there's, I think, motion is made. I want to say personnel, and I don't know that we,
Anything else?
I don't think we do. Anything potential, anything regarding litigation that you want to speak to?
Not
Please? Internet secu, oh, yes, NE, please.
You
E, internet
think you need a lower
security.
check or an elevator?
I'll tell you why.
Gotta pick on anyone I can.
Mine is 20 years.
That was a motion made, and you seconded that motion, did you? Mary?
Cheers, yes.
Those in favor say aye. Opposed, so voted. This should not take too long.
They need.